Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is your brother Luqman, the Aussie Muslim. Today we have a very special guest, Alhamdulillah, brother Bobby from the Bobby's Perspective, which all of you in the chat would know who he is. But in case there is anyone that watches this stream or video later on that comes across it and doesn't know who Bobby is, brother Bobby, he is a very popular YouTuber. He started about 4 years ago, I believe, first with when he was a vegan. He was promoting veganism, funnily enough. And then he went into like carnivore diet, things like that. And then he started researching Islam. So brother Bobby has a background. He's in Orthodox Christianity. His parents are from Northern Macedonia, but Bobby was, I believe, born and raised in Germany. So today we're going to be very briefly talking about brother Bobby's journey to Islam. I'm just going to ask some questions about his journey. So we're not going to hear the whole story because most of you, if not all of you, has heard brother Bobby's story before. So we're just going to very briefly go through it, touch up on his Shahada, how he ended up embracing Islam, his first experience with Ramadan, and then we're going to jump into talking about nutrition and training. We're going to talk about how Bobby went through veganism, carnivore, his experience in bodybuilding, training, nutrition, insha'Allah. So without further ado, let's bring brother Bobby into the chat. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brother Bobby.
Alaikum salam, brother. Brother Bobby is a tongue twister,
eh? Yeah, Alhamdulillah. You can hear everything all good, microphone's good. People in the chat, can you let us know how's the audio, how's the video? Is everything all good, insha'Allah? Yeah, so how's things, bro? How's Thailand? How's Bangkok?
Yeah, first and foremost, thank you for having me. And yeah, Bangkok is amazing. I just came back from a little holiday with my family. Went to a town nearby, a little beach town. Had some good food, had some relaxation, had some fresh air for a change because Bangkok is extremely polluted. It's a beautiful place, but the pollution here is absolutely insane. They don't have any regulations on their motorbikes, scooters, etc., etc. So you see tuk-tuks driving down here with racing exhausts and whatnot. It's absolutely insane. But yeah, it's absolutely good, man. Around here, as I mentioned on my channel, we have a fantastic Muslim community, much to my surprise, because when I visited Thailand for the first time, it was about Buddhism, it was about Hinduism, about spirituality, meditation, etc. So I never expected to find any Muslims in Thailand to begin with. But now I see that so many people here in Bangkok, and especially in the south, are Muslim, and they're absolutely welcoming. For people that have been to Asian countries, they know this Asian charm about the people, this hospitality, very, very nice people. But the combination with Islam brings out the best of them, of course. So it's this friendliness, this smiley attitude, but paired with the groundness of Islam. Absolutely amazing to be here, Alhamdulillah. So yeah, it has been good. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I never would have thought that there were many Muslims in Thailand. And it's because of you that I became known about that. There's quite a lot there, subhanAllah. Okay, so as I mentioned to the audience, we're going to briefly go through your journey. I'll just ask some very brief questions, and then we'll jump into the nutrition, veganism, carnivore, all of that, inshallah. So you have an Orthodox Christian background. You have a Balkan background. Your parents are from Northern Macedonia. Your heritage also comes from Bulgaria, I believe, as well. Right. And
as everybody in Northern Macedonia does, if they want to admit it or not.
Yeah, right. And so now, was your family practicing religion much at all?
I mentioned this as well on my YouTube channel. On the Balkan, and you know that probably as good as I do, that people are very much identified culturally with their religion. So therefore, if you ask them, they will proudly proclaim that they are Orthodox Christians. However, when it comes down to practicing, not so much. So we would go to the church on Easter and on Christmas. That's about it. At best, sometimes just for Christmas, once per year. We wouldn't go every Sunday or something on those lines. I have to say as well, to defend my parents a little bit here, we didn't have a proper Macedonian Orthodox church in Germany. Maybe if they would have been in Macedonia, we would have gone more often, who knows? But in Germany, we didn't have that. And therefore, for the occasion of Easter and Christmas, they would actually fly in a priest from Macedonia. And so then we would attend the Mass, you know. So they weren't very, very practicing. However, it was nevertheless an Orthodox Christian household. For example, my mother would have those icons at home from Mother Mary or Jesus and pray to them, right? And that is something that would occur on a daily basis. So therefore, I was always surrounded by it. Moreover, I was baptized in Macedonia during the communist time. And that means it was an undercover baptism, if you will, because we had to do this in the flat of my parents, because the communists were around, the churches were shut down, and therefore we got baptized in that flat. And that being said, that shows you yet again that there was a great value in being Christian Orthodox, because otherwise, why would have they baptized me in a flat, right? They would have just said otherwise, hey, the churches are shut down, we don't have to go after this, who cares? But they went out of their way to actually baptize me, my sister, and therefore the identification was very, very strong. However, when it comes down to the theological understanding, there is absolutely zero. They do not know about the Trinity. They do not understand the concept of who Jesus truly is supposed to be in Christianity. And therefore, to say they are practicing Christians would be far-fetched, because even though they believe that they are Christians, they're not truly Christians that adhere to the Orthodox theology. They don't, because they don't know about it. Right. So, yeah, as I said, Christians by name, that is for sure, but practicing not so much.
For those that don't know, I also have a Balkan background. My parents are from Croatia, and basically the same thing as Bobby said with my family and Croatians, and subhanAllah. So at what point did you start questioning Christianity and the Bible?
Yeah, funny enough, later in my life, when I returned to Orthodox Christianity, because just briefly, as we said, I let go of the identification as a Christian in my early 20s. I was involved in the party scene, I was living into the day, and during that time, I kind of let go of this identification with Christianity. Matter of fact, prior to that, I would always wear this huge classical Balkan golden chain with 3 crosses, believe it or not. And I had no idea why I was wearing 3 crosses, but I heard there was something about the number 3, so it should be 3 crosses. And I was going to the club with those crosses, right? Very, very proud, identified as a Christian. I believe I was 22 at that time.
Like a maestro.
A real maestro. But then I got deeper and deeper into the party scene, and I kind of let go of the identification, as I said. And it was really during the time when I put that cross chain away. And now looking back, it is not because I believe the cross chain has a specific power or anything on those lines. However, it was for me a way of remembering God. And when I removed that chain, I stopped thinking about God, right? And during this time, I further and further got into the party scene, drug scene, fornication, etc., you name it, and then into new agey philosophies. So yet again, I want to make this very, very clear. I have absolutely no power attributed to that chain in my mind. However, it was for me a way of remembering God. And when I let go of that, I didn't think about God twice anymore. And I was just living in the moment, partying, living my young life. So the point of the story is, during my 20s, up until I turned 30 or so, I didn't think about God much. I was thinking about that we are the universe, that we can actualize ourselves by meditating, certain doctrines like that, you know. And then when all of that failed, after me actually going to South America and drinking ayahuasca with the shamans in a ceremonial setting and dancing around the fireplace, that's when I realized, okay, I feel absolutely lost here, and this didn't bring me anything, right? It didn't help whatsoever. I tried much more than anybody that I know. I explored so many religions, but now I feel absolutely lost. And why is that so? So for me, I quickly came to the realization that that is because I forgot God. That's it. I don't have God in my life anymore, and now I'm lost. Actually, I would go so far to say that I made myself into my own God. I was worshiping myself, because all the pursuits during my 20s to 30 were self-centered. I was thinking about how I can elevate my consciousness, how I can become this master meditator, how I can become a shaman, how I can create this body, and we're going to talk about that later on, right? How I can pursue many, many women, how I can make money. All of this was so ego-centered, and I completely forgot about God. And so then when I realized that in my early 30s, I said, okay, the only way to return to God is obviously Orthodox Christianity, because that's all I got. I explored Buddhism, Hinduism, shamanism, etc., and Islam was always the enemy for me. That's how I was brought up, and that's what I believed. So this is why I didn't look into Islam whatsoever, and I just returned to Orthodox Christianity. However, by doing that, now I really want to do it right, because I said, hey, up until now, I didn't really know about my own faith, and this is why I went off the path. This is why I went into all of those other ideologies, because I don't know enough about Christianity. But then later on, I realized that actually that kept me in Christianity, because I didn't know too much about it. Once I started exploring Christianity and I started learning about it, this is when I found out about the Trinity. And this was the breaking point. So to cut a very, very long story super short, it was the Trinity. Once I found out about the Trinity, I couldn't believe it at all. And I started researching, kept on researching, and ultimately I went to Greece, to Mount Athos. And Mount Athos is a small remote island which hasn't been changed in over 1,200 years or so by now.
Was it snowing there?
No, it wasn't snowing during the time.
I saw a picture of you. I saw a picture of you. I don't know if it was Instagram or, but it was like snowing. You're at a church.
That is before that. That is before that. So I was already Orthodox, but on Athos, no, it wasn't snowing anymore. Athos was the early beginning of spring after winter that time. So it was raining. Yeah, but Athos is in Greece, and it is an island where only monks and bishops live. There are no women allowed whatsoever. They live in exclusion over there. Quite interesting characters that I met over there. You have some priests that are former doctors, lawyers, others are drug addicts and whatnot, and they just left that life behind, and they practice Orthodox Christianity over there. However, in talking to them, like we Muslims say, for example, mashallah or insha'Allah, there's always God implied. But those guys, they would always refer to Mother Mary, Jesus, Holy Spirit, and whatnot. They wouldn't even talk about God. And for me, that was obviously very, very shocking. I couldn't believe this, because for me, that was a pilgrimage to get closer to God. And now all of a sudden, they're talking about everything but God. And that was insane to me. I couldn't believe it. I thought that I made it to our Christian Mecca, so to speak. And now nobody cares about God here, apparently, So this is how I really tested Christianity, essentially, by living with the monks and the bishops in Athos. And after that pilgrimage, I felt even further away from God. The usual Orthodox Christian that I know from Serbia or Bulgaria or whatnot, they go there to Mount Athos and they come back refreshed. They feel so good. They feel connected to God, But I came back and I felt even more distant. I thought to myself, fantastic, man. And this had nothing to do with God. What am I doing here? So this is when I sat down and I said to myself, all right, now I have to dig deep myself. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to debunk Islam first, like a David Wood, because when I debunked Islam, then finally I can return to Orthodox Christianity, and this will make sense again to me. Finally, Christianity will make sense because I discarded the rest, right? And basically the rest is history. When I opened up the Quran, I saw that the Quran finally was speaking about God alone and nothing else.
Alhamdulillah. I believe your words were you tried to find the devil in the Quran.
Exactly.
Something like that.
Yeah, because even the monks in Athos, they told me that Islam is the devil's religion. And they would tell me as well about certain Muslims, Albanians, coming to Mount Athos and setting fires, apparently. So there's a fire again, and those are the Muslims. They try to burn Mount Athos. I'm like, okay, well, apparently. And they were all telling me how it is a satanic religion, that Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is the Antichrist potentially, etc., etc. Very, very dark stuff. And then I said to myself, okay, the only thing that I can do now is find the devil in the Quran, debunk it by myself, guided by the Holy Spirit. I will find it for sure, and then return stronger to Orthodox Christianity. But that failed. Thank God.
So, what was the motivations behind starting the reaction videos and like doing this publicly? You would have been a bit worried about your family about that too, yeah?
To be honest, I'm a little bit of an idiot, I have to say. So I do things first and ask questions later. So therefore, whatever happens, happens. I didn't plan much prior to it. I didn't think too much about my family. The reactions, of course, were quite severe, but I didn't think prior to that. However, the reaction videos, they came organically out of my first video about me reading the Quran. And I waited with that video for quite some time, because first I read the whole Quran, right? First I read the whole Quran. And that was the first challenge that I set to myself, because after a few pages of the Quran, I have to admit that I already started defending Islam. And I had those talks with my wife, and she was still very opposed to Islam. She was identified with Christianity. But I already started defending Islam, and I told her, but here, see, they are talking against the Trinity, so that is good, And she was shocked when she heard that. I already switched cams basically right then, right there. However, because I have this history of jumping head first into so many ideologies, be it bodybuilding, be it spirituality, be it veganism, I said, okay, this time I'm really taking my time first. And what I'm going to do first is read the whole Quran. So then I read the whole Quran, and I was thinking to myself, okay, this is quite impressive. Should I speak about this on my channel, as I always do about every topic? And I still said, no. First, I'm going to bite my tongue, and I'm going to research further. I'm going to read some hadiths. I'm going to look up some YouTube videos, etc., and then maybe I'm going to talk about it, right? So I postponed it quite a bit, and I think it was already like 1.5 years in or so in my studies, and then finally I said, okay, I have to make a video about this. I cannot sit still anymore. I have to talk about it. And then I made this video about the Quran. And once I made this video, the reception of that video was absolutely phenomenal, and many Muslims came over to my channel and said, why don't you react to this in this video? Try it out. Right. And I thought, well, I'm already doing reaction videos to vegan content. Why not? Right. So I was already in the reaction YouTube scene, if you will. For me, that wasn't something new. I said, okay, might as well. I react to one video. And then that's how it started. I react to one video. Then people were like, oh man, please, you have to react to more, react to 2 or 3 videos per week, and so on and so forth. And then the end, it was pretty much every single day.
Yeah, so it's very interesting because obviously it was a very genuine process for you. Some people might just do it for views, get the subscribers, you know, but obviously you went through a long period learning about Islam, and then you felt like you wanted to share that experience. SubhanAllah.
Yeah, and I just want to say one more thing. For me, especially in the beginning, it was kind of hard to do more reaction videos. And even to this very day, when I see and when I feel that the reaction videos are interfering with my learning, then I don't upload. And people always complain about it. They tell me, oh man, we were waiting for your upload today. You didn't upload. Yeah, sorry. But when I feel that it will interfere with my learning away aside from YouTube, then I cannot do it. Because I don't know how it is for you, but for me personally, when I get oversaturated with certain content or with certain information, then it puts me off that subject. And I don't want to be put off Islam. That would be absolutely horrible, right? And so when I feel, okay, it interferes with my deen, with my iman, then I stay away from it. And that's why I really took my time with it.
Yeah. Okay, so you went through quite a lengthy period of making these reaction videos to Islamic content, sharing your journey. So what was that, like almost 2 years in total, or before your Shahada? Or no, maybe 1 year?
Not even. I would have to look it up, to be totally honest, but I took my Shahada in the end of March, I believe. Yeah, something on those lines. I uploaded the... No, it must have been maybe half a year.
Oh,
half a
okay.
year, I think, on YouTube. Half a year, maybe 7 months, something like that. Yeah, it wasn't a full year. Yeah, definitely not.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure
that's another thing,
started,
right? Yeah, I don't want to point the finger and say, you know, those people do it just for views. They're just doing it for clicks. However, for me, it was crystal clear, and I said that on my channel as well. If I do not revert in that given time frame, then I'm going to stop with Islamic reaction videos. And I said that on my channel, and I meant it, because ultimately it takes some time to do your research, for sure, and you shouldn't be rushed, for sure. But it takes only so long. It doesn't take 2 or 3 years doing reaction videos. And if you're not certain after a while, as I said, then you can abstain from YouTube for a while and do your research in private or go to a mosque, etc., in order to genuinely seek, right? And that's why I said it here on my channel as well. When I see certain people, I'm not going to name them, but they've been reacting to Islamic content for 2 or 3 plus years. You cannot tell me that those people are genuine in their pursuits. It just doesn't strike me as that.
Yeah, I see those channels as well, and their content is very mixed as well. You know, like when you started reacting to Islamic stuff, it was just like all Islamic content. These other channels I see, it's just a whole mix of things. Very, very mixed.
Sure. And when I started reacting to Islamic content as well, it was, as I said, during the time that I was really heavily researching Islam, and I understood more and more about Islam. And this is when I, for example, took another subject, whatever it might be, some social commentary, and you would have, let's say, a woman that wasn't too modestly dressed. I already started censoring them, for example, right? Out of respect for my audience. And so at those other channels, as you mentioned, you would see mixed content, and the mixed content would be absolutely degenerate, right? You would have naked women, almost their cleavages and whatnot, and they wouldn't even think about censoring that for their audience, but they would capitalize on the Muslim viewers. And then you cannot tell me that you're sincere.
Yeah, that's why I don't subscribe to those channels.
Yeah.
So leading up to just before your Shahada, you had some doubts, and even like speaking on this topic with the reactions, you were saying that if you were not going to accept Islam within 3 months, you would just stop the reactions because you didn't want to be,
exactly.
What's the word? Disingenuous, right? To
Hypocrite.
The audience, or
Yeah.
So now, but you had some doubts before your Shahada. Do you want to just talk about that a little bit?
Sure, absolutely. The doubts predominantly come from my biases and conditioning during my time growing up. As I said previously, on the Balkan, it was always the same narrative. We were under Ottoman rule for 500 years. And finally, we freed ourselves from Ottoman rule. So people really don't understand how much of an identification it is and how much it plays into the national spirit, if you will, of a Serb, of a Macedonian, that they freed themselves of the Ottomans, that they freed themselves from Islam. This is how they see it. And therefore, if you're not identified with that hatred for Islam, you're not even a Macedonian, you're not even a Serb. I mean, if you look into the recent history of the Serbs, for example, how they went into Srebrenica and killed the Bosniaks, that is an absolute identification of why it has been done. Because the general at the time, he said that now it is the final time to free the Balkan from the remaining Turks, from Islam. But that was the idea behind it. Even though genetically speaking, if you look into DNA tests, you will see that Bosniaks and Serbs are identical. So they're definitely one people. There is no difference between them. However, the motivation behind it is to finish that grand plan of freeing the Balkan from Islam. So it is very, very different for us coming from the Balkan in comparison to, let's say, a German. Right? For a German to accept Islam, of course, it is strange for some people to see that a German would accept Islam. However, it is not so nationalistic, so cultural as it is on the Balkan. For us, it is what we are. Right? This is how we are taught, essentially. We are the opposite of Islam. We are the Christians. We are the fighters for freedom, etc., etc., etc. And that's why that bias was extremely strong. Growing up like that, seeing the Muslims always as the other, that was huge. And then lastly, it was about me, as I said, finally returning to Orthodox Christianity and then being so identified with that faith. And the counterpart to that faith, believe it or not, and many Muslims don't even know that, but the counterpart to our Orthodox Christian faith is Islam, which is absolute insanity, of course. It is not liberalism. It is not the degenerate West. It is not America. It is simply Islam, right? We have to fight each other, which is absolutely ridiculous and doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Right. I mean, of course, theologically speaking, there are differences for sure. We as Muslims, we do not prescribe to the Trinity. We do not prescribe to Jesus as the Son of God. However, nevertheless, in terms of value systems, the Orthodox Christians have much more in common with the Muslims than with the liberals. But nowadays, people, of course, have been liberalized, and therefore they're not really identifying with Orthodox Christianity, but with a liberal mindset. But yeah, nevertheless, that being said, for me, it was that conditioning. And lastly, it was about me, as I said, jumping from one ideology to the next during my 20s, accepting it as the absolute truth, and then just a few months or years later, seeing that I was totally wrong. And so therefore, during that time, even though it was so, let's say it was valuable to experience all kinds of different belief systems and other diets, etc., because that made me into the person that I am today. However, when you start so many things and you fail at them, you start doubting yourself. Because when I became a vegan, for example, and we're going to talk about that in length later, I thought that now everything falls into place. My uncles, my cousins, they're all hunters and butchers, and I never liked that process of slaughtering. So now, it clicked. So therefore, we shouldn't eat animals, right? That's what it is. It always made sense to me. I knew this as a kid, right? The vegan fitra. And so I returned to that. And I was 100% convinced, it is veganism. The future is vegan. We are evolving as humans, and now we are leaving that behind. We're not cavemen anymore. So you can really go deep into that ideology. And after a while, you really believe, okay, you found the Holy Grail. This is the truth. And I was a vegan for 4 years straight. And during that time, if you would have told me, man, you're not going to be a vegan in a few years, I would tell you you're absolutely insane. You're crazy. This is for life. I'm going to die as a vegan. That's how I saw it, And therefore, coming out of that delusion, coming out of that cult, I was very, very careful, and very skeptical about everything else, which is good because it led me down the road of researching much, much more than I've ever done before, right? And this is why it took me 2 years in total of researching Islam before I accepted it. But that was my biggest doubt. My biggest doubt was myself, because I knew myself now, because I saw how I acted during my 20s. I realized what kind of extreme character I can be, or what kind of extreme character I was and still am to an extent. And this is why I didn't want this to happen again with Islam. I didn't want to accept Islam and then a year later I say, oh, well, it wasn't the truth after all. That's why it took my time.
And did you feel, was it harder for you with the audience as well, when they just kept telling you, do your Shahada, before you die, Bobby,
Yeah, before you die. It was a daily reoccurrence. Actually, it's interesting that you asked that, because my best friend, who is a Catholic Christian, he is Polish. He reached out to me during the live stream with John. I forgot his surname. Sorry, John. Sorry, brother. Fontaine. Yes, that's him. And John Fontaine, he put me on the spot, and he said, it's absolutely unacceptable, Bobby. You have so much knowledge. You have to revert, which I found entertaining, but it didn't really put pressure on me, because I don't operate like that. If you tell me you have to, then I actually don't have to. We're from the Balkan, it's the exact opposite then. But my friend asked me as well, and he said, wow, man, you have so much pressure on you. The whole Muslim world is watching, and, they really want you to revert. How do you feel? And I said, nah, man, I don't feel like that at all. So for me, I have a certain time frame in my mind, and I really believe in the saying, Allah guides who he wills. And if it's supposed to happen, then it will happen anyways. So I'm really not worried at all about it. So the pressure online wasn't really pressure in that sense. Of course, you would like people to be a bit more understanding, but people don't truly know you. They simply do not truly know me. They do not know what I've been through. And therefore, I understand where they're coming from. And ultimately, they wish well on you, right? They want the best for you. This is why they want you to accept Islam, because it won't benefit them anyways. If I revert to Islam, what will they get from that? Nothing, right? And that's why I didn't take it as peer pressure or anything like that. I just took it as, well, those people mean well. That's it.
Yeah, of course, I don't know what's happening inside of you, what you're going through and stuff like that. Okay, so taking your Shahada, what was the leap of faith, if we want to use those words?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, the leap of faith was the dream that I had. I don't know if you ever heard it.
Yeah, I've heard it a couple of times, but
yeah, it was my dream ultimately. And it was during a time where I did pretty much all the research that you have to do. I already started praying 5 times per day. I went to Jummah every Friday. I learned wudu and all of that. Moreover, I was taking Arabic lessons every Sunday as well, right? So everything was in place essentially. And the only thing that was missing was the Shahada. That's it. So even my wife, that was so against Islam initially, when she found out that I was praying 5 times per day, she sat down with me and asked me, what are you waiting for? What are you doing? Why don't you revert to Islam? So you already pray 5 times per day. You're already going to the mosque. What are you doing? It doesn't make any sense. And even she didn't want me to revert at all, but even she came and asked me what's going on. You cannot keep on going here all the time doing reaction videos. What are you doing? And for me, it was the same. I felt that it was about time, but something was holding me back. And I didn't fully realize what it was. So I was telling myself, as I said, I know myself, and this is why I'm postponing now. I have to learn more. However, I realize now that I didn't truly understood myself, because in my dream, and for people that haven't heard it, I'm floating over this Islamic city. I'm flying, right? And I see all of those mosques, all of those minarets. It almost looks like I would imagine the golden age of Islam to have looked like. That's how I imagine it, right? It must have been that. Maybe Baghdad back in the day, who knows? And so I'm flying over the city, floating, and then I hear the Shahada, but it's not coming from the mosques, it's coming from my heart, right? And it's coming from my heart, and it tries to get out, and it's building up, this pressure, it's building up my chest, building up, and it's rising, and reaches my throat, and then it reaches my mouth, my inner, room of my mouth. And I don't want to speak it because, I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready yet. I have to do more research. And so I hold my mouth. I hold my mouth shut in my dream, but it tries to burst out. And so it bursts out of my heart, and you hear it over the city, everywhere, right? And so what I realized now is that what I didn't know about myself is that I couldn't really understand that it was really just myself holding myself back. So the initial patience that I had, sabr, was good. The initial research that I want to do was good based upon my previous experiences. All of that was good. However, I failed to understand that now it was still just me holding myself back. So the last battle, as always, was against myself. So I was battling against myself, holding down the Shahada, even though my heart has already proclaimed it. And when I woke up out of that dream, I understood, okay, I am already Muslim. That is it. My heart already knows this truth. And now it's just literally about speaking it. That's all. That's it.
Yep.
And so that was the leap of faith, so to speak. And I did a podcast with Sheikh Uthman way back. And he said that if I'm ready, then I have to do the Shahada with him. And I gave him my word. So I said, sure, let's do it, man, no worries. And because I like to believe that I'm a man of my word, of course, I called him up and I said, okay, I'm ready, let's do it. Where are you? And he was in Indonesia, so not too far away. So that's when he said, yeah, no worries, I'm going to come over to Thailand just for you, just for one day, and we're going to do the Shahada together. Amazing.
That's amazing, bro. Wow. What a guy, man.
Yes. Yeah, cool guy, definitely. So I asked him, okay, when are you coming over? The only downside was that he said it's going to be in 3 weeks. So now I had to sit there with my dream, with my epic experience there, and wait for 3 weeks. And during that time, my Muslim brother here, he didn't say you have to take Shahada because you're going to die today, but he said, man, please be careful in the Bangkok traffic. I had a dream of you. You were driving the motorbike and Shaitan was chasing you, you know? So please take care. Please take care. It might be a few rough weeks, you know. Like if you really want to wait, but be careful. And really, during those 3 weeks, I drove like an old lady, man. I was driving so slow. Who knows? Maybe that saved my life. I don't know. But I was driving so slow, you know, to stay safe. And Alhamdulillah, it worked out. 3 weeks later, Sheikh Uthman came over here. We did the Shahada together. It was amazing.
Yeah. Of course, you know, Allah knows best. You could have already had Islam in your heart and you could have already been a Muslim. You know, subhanAllah. So going on, you've accepted Islam, alhamdulillah. Now, I just want to say about your Shahada, because I remember you earlier on before, you know, doing your Shahada and accepting Islam, you spoke about how you wanted the Shahada to be sort of kind of special, right?
Yeah, that's
like a kind of special experience. Like when you're speaking with John Fontaine, you're like, I don't want to just do it here in my room and in front of the camera. And, you know, you've been doing all this research about Islam for 2 years and you're just going to do it in your room by yourself. But when I remember the day when I saw your Shahada, like I was just on YouTube looking through the feed and your video came up and I just thought, man, subhanAllah, I was so happy, alhamdulillah. And just watching it, like, I don't know, it was like such a clear video. It was a beautiful masjid. The birds were cheeping in the background. It was amazing, subhanAllah.
That was absolutely amazing. It couldn't have been any better than that. This masjid, the interesting part is as well that when I was looking for masjids here in Bangkok, it was my first time that I was going to a masjid in the first place, right? On the Balkan, even though we have many, many mosques, I never went there, obviously, because it's the enemy's house. So it was the first time that I was actually looking for masjids around here, and this was the first masjid that I entered. Little did I know, however, the Muslim community that we reached out to here in Bangkok, asking for the Shahada, this is where they wanted to do it, right? And so it's kind of crazy because for me, it was the first masjid that I stepped foot here in Bangkok, and then ultimately it ended up being the masjid where I took my Shahada as well. But it's a beautiful place. Anybody that is ever visiting Bangkok, make sure to visit the Islamic Center, Bangkok. This is that masjid. It's amazing. And it's so packed. Every Friday, you see people praying inside and outside. The whole parking spot is full with people. It's absolutely amazing. And yeah, aesthetically, it was very, very pleasing as well. The robe that I was wearing was a gift from Senegal. It was actually custom fit for myself as well. It was the sister of my wife who reverted to Islam as well. And she brought that thing to me. Yeah, and that thing is black and gold as well. I pay credit to aesthetics, you know, I do enjoy it. And so the background of the masjid was well black with gold, you know, so it was very, very beautiful. Yeah, my friend took that video.
A bit of aesthetics, man.
Right. Yeah, that's it. So yeah, I didn't edit that video either. I just came back home and I just uploaded it like that, from my phone. That's it.
No, well, yeah, Alhamdulillah, it was amazing to see. So going on Ramadan after your Shahada Ramadan was like the next day or two after, wasn't it?
2 days later.
Yeah, subhanallah. So, and that was I was really hoping you'd do your Shahada before Ramadan because so you could experience Ramadan as a Muslim, right? After you've accepted
Yeah.
Islam, you can experience it 100%. So how about talking about your experience with Ramadan, the dry fasting? How was that?
Yeah, I want to say as well that the deadline that I gave myself with the 3 months of not taking Shahada and then I will quit doing reaction videos, that was until Ramadan, roughly. And so my idea was as well that if I wouldn't revert, then I would just stay off YouTube and still fast Ramadan because I really wanted to do it anyways. But then just stay private about it and don't do anything on YouTube. Because matter of fact, 1 year prior to that, I was in France and I was there during the time of Ramadan. And I was researching Islam, as I said, but I haven't converted, right? And then I saw the other people, the other Muslims in France fasting. And I felt envious, even back then, 1 year prior. I was like, I want to fast as well. And even 1 year prior to that, I did like 2 or 3 days of fasting just to see how it is. And I enjoyed it so much. I wanted to fast, but I always would find an excuse back then because I wasn't Muslim yet. So I said, well, I don't have to fast all of those days. So finally, I got to experience it this year. And for me, it was absolutely amazing, man, because I've done so many different fasts throughout my lifetime. I did, for example, a 10-day water fast. I did a 35-day juice fast where you're just juicing, green juices, vegetable juices, and just drink that. No food whatsoever. 35 days of no food. I did all kinds of different practices, as I said, but I never did a dry fast for a whole month, essentially. And for me, it was absolutely amazing. It was amazing because I have to say as well, it was not the way that I expected it to be. I thought that you're going to be extremely thirsty all the time. But that wasn't the case at all. And later on, I found out that your body is actually capable of converting your fat cells in combination with the oxygen that we're breathing into water. Because the fat cells contain hydrogen, right? And you're breathing the oxygen. And so therefore, you take oxygen molecules and the H molecule, the hydrogen molecule, and it gets combined into HO2, which is water. So your body is actually able to create its own water supply through hydrogen and the oxygen that you're breathing. That's amazing. It doesn't go on forever, of course. Yeah, that's halal.
It's halal, doesn't break your fast.
That's right, yeah. But that's really how it works. So your body is supplying itself with water for a brief period of time before you, of course, then get dehydrated. But nevertheless, for me, it was absolutely amazing. The clarity of mind was phenomenal. And moreover, of course, because I just reverted to Islam, to then begin Ramadan right away, it couldn't have been any more perfect than that because I got to experience Ramadan as a Muslim. And I think I speak for all the Muslims here that during Ramadan, the iman, the strength of your faith is something on a totally different level. I never felt so close to God as I did during Ramadan. It was absolutely amazing because you're doing your prayers, but you're doing them whilst you're not eating, whilst you're not drinking. So they're even more focused. You cannot put your mind onto anything else but the prayer, right? Fajr was a pleasure for me, waking up even before Fajr, then the last little meal, and then doing Fajr, and then doing the 5 prayers during the day. Everything was so focused on it. And I have to say, I wasn't even looking forward to breaking the fast at the end of the day, because when I get into something, I really want to ride it out even further. And I would sometimes even break it like 2 hours later also. Just stay outside in the park with my kid, play. I wasn't looking forward to iftar that much. I have Pakistani neighbors here, and they would invite me, let's eat now, and eat shawarma and whatnot. For me, it wasn't so exciting, to be totally honest. For me, the fasting was extremely exciting. I really loved it, because I felt so close to God during that time.
So just to touch on that really quickly, I don't know if you've heard this before, but the scholars will mention that it is disliked to delay the breaking of the fast. So we should break. Brother Rami from the One Muslim channel, he's on the chat. Just to mention him quickly, he was the host of the YouTube takeover stream that we had with the Revert brothers and talking about the importance of seeking knowledge. Brother Rami, if you can find the hadith for that or something, because I wasn't expecting to touch up on that. But yeah, so the scholars mentioned that it's very important to break the fast. So it's not more rewarding to delay it, because the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is to break it immediately, and he encouraged to do it immediately to break the fast, and then to pray Maghrib, obviously. So yeah, just wanted to touch
thank
up
you
on
for
that.
the knowledge. Thank you for the knowledge. Absolutely, I'm still learning. I didn't expect any more reward. Just that being
We're
said,
all still learning, bro. I've been Muslim 14 years, but I got little knowledge, man. I try to share whatever little I can.
No, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Absolutely. As that for me, it was just, it felt so nice. It felt so pure. I felt so clean not eating during that time. And yeah, I would find myself being in the park, still out with the family, still out with my kid, playing outside, and yeah, not really thinking about breaking my fast then. You know?
I know what you're
but
saying,
anyways,
because you get used to the fasting. It's like you can just keep going. I know what you're saying.
yeah,
Yeah,
for me, it was about, I believe it was 3 p.m. or so. 3 p.m. I was really hungry. The time frame around 3 to 5 p.m. or so, I was really hungry. And if I could break the fast there, it would have felt fantastic probably. But once that time frame was passed, after that, I didn't feel like eating at all anymore. I could have just fasted throughout the next day probably.
I think it's probably the same for most Muslims, because I can relate to that as well. It's always that, like around Asr time, that you start to feel the hunger. Yeah. How was your suhoor? What were you having before the Fajr, for the starting of the...
Yeah. I tried all kinds of things. So I tried a ketogenic meal, but that made me feel kind of sick during the day for whatever reason. I tried to eat just eggs and cheese, like a very, very fatty meal. It didn't work out properly for me. Then I tried the proper bodybuilding meal, which is oatmeals and protein powder, something like that. So that worked okay. But yeah, in the end, most of the time, especially the last week or so, I wasn't hungry at all anymore in the morning. And I would just drink a protein shake, not even like this big smoothie or anything, just a protein shake, and stick with that. And that would work the best most of the time. And this is why, for the Islamophobes out there, because I heard it during Ramadan quite often, they would say, oh, well, that's not really fasting. It is feasting. The Muslims, they are waking up and then they're eating everything they want, you know, and then they are not eating for a brief moment of time, and then they are feasting again. Okay, maybe somebody, but for me, it wasn't like that at all. I had one protein shake in the end, and then I would fast the whole day. And usually I would have one, maybe 2 meals at the end of the day, and they were very, very clean. It would be rice and steak, rice and chicken, something on those lines. So I wasn't feasting at all whatsoever. Quite the opposite. I felt that my gut would get smaller and smaller over that month. And yeah, I didn't even have the appetite to eat much. I was always full after my rice and chicken meal.
And that's in line with the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. His stomach was always flat. He never overate. And he mentioned the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned that it's enough to eat enough portions of food to keep your back straight. And if you want to eat more than that, so the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would eat very little. If you want to eat more than that, then keep 1/3 of food in your stomach for 1/3 in your stomach for food, 1/3 for water, 1/3 for air. So that's, if you wanted to eat more, you shouldn't go beyond that. So these Islamophobes saying, "Oh, we just feast and stuff," and then some Muslims do. Yeah, some I can be guilty of that sometimes as well, but it's not in accordance with the sunnah of the Prophet. It's actually against it if we overeat anyway.
Yeah, there you go. If it doesn't go in accordance with the theology itself, it doesn't matter what a Muslim does. There's nothing to do with religion then, if somebody overeats or not. But other than that, during the time of Ramadan, it was the hottest month here in Thailand as well. It was an epic journey, man. I really loved it, because we would go, for example, on Friday to the mosque, and you would arrive there sunburned and totally dehydrated because we were sweating so much, you know, and then we would arrive finally at the mosque, you do the prayer, you're without food, without drink. It was really challenging, but I enjoyed the challenge, you know, because especially nowadays, as a dad, my extreme days, like really extreme days, are over. And back in the day, I used to squat like 220 kilos or something like that. I don't know what that is in pounds for people watching. I used to do very, very heavy weights, very, very challenging things. And yeah, lately I haven't been doing too many crazy challenging things. But doing a dry fast during the hottest month in Thailand was finally something that I could challenge myself with. It was very, very enjoyable for me. You know, it was spiritual, it was physical. It was absolutely beautiful. I liked it. And for the people that always wanted me to make a video about my Ramadan, I tried, but I never succeeded because I was so in the moment during that month. I didn't feel like uploading anything particular about Ramadan. People want to hear my experience with it. They wanted to see a day in the life, and I didn't feel like it at all. And I know that it would be better for the YouTube channel to do certain things, but I never do them for the sake of the YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just don't ever do that. For example, Sneeko was here in Thailand, and people want me to collaborate with Sneeko. And Sneeko wrote me. He got my number from Sheikh Uthman, and he wrote me and he told me that he's in Phuket at the moment, but I'm in Bangkok. So now I could take a flight ticket for $30. It's not even expensive, and I could fly over to Phuket, and we could have collaborated, etc., etc. But I don't do that. I am not chasing cloud. I really couldn't care less, you know. So I told him, hey man, if you're in Bangkok, stop by. You're invited. You know, I'll bring you to the mosque. If not, next time, all good. You know. And that's why. So with the Ramadan content, for me, it was so amazing to be finally Muslim and to fast Ramadan that I couldn't worry about those things. You know, I couldn't worry about taking my camera to the mosque and filming it, and now we're having iftar or whatever it might be. It wouldn't feel organic. So that's why I didn't do it. Yeah, maybe next year, we'll see.
Yeah, I dropped drastically with my content in Ramadan. Yeah, because didn't feel like doing much during the fasting, and nighttime was very busy as well with going for Isha and then praying Taraweeh, and so yeah, but yeah, Alhamdulillah. All right, so I guess we can move on. So that was 46 minutes. We've done your story, we've done your Shahada, we've done your Ramadan. It's probably one of your quickest storytelling. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, most definitely, man.
All right, so
speed run today.
Let's go into the veganism. So you started your YouTube channel as a vegan, is that right?
That's right, as a raw vegan, I have to add. So not
raw vegan,
not a dummy that is eating only vegetables, but a very, very smart person that is eating uncooked vegetables all day long. Very smart.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. Even better, because eating only vegetables is not hardcore enough. You have to eat raw vegetables and fruits. That's all I eat. Yeah, so the thing with veganism is this. I have to, again, bite my tongue because otherwise it's too long and I have to circle back to my story. 2011 is when I got very, very sick in Germany. And during that time, I tried many alternative methods, be it yoga, be it acupuncture, be it homeopathy, Germanic medicine, and whatnot. I tried all kinds of things, and ultimately nothing really worked. Western medicine didn't work either. And this is how I got into psychedelics, because I found psychedelics as a healing remedy during that time. And I don't want to advocate for any psychotropic drugs here on this channel or my channel, neither. However, I have to say that during that time, they actually did work. I had physical effects of healing, of cleansing, using certain substances. However, those substances always go hand in hand with a quote-unquote spiritual experience. It was during that time that I saw certain things in those realms, if you will, that were very Buddhistic, very Hinduistic, right? And therefore, I searched for more information here in this world, and I found Buddhism, and I found the doctrine of ahimsa. And ahimsa means do no harm. That's a Buddhist theology, if you will, of not doing any harm, and this extends from humans to animals. So you shouldn't do any harm, you shouldn't do any killing, and therefore you shouldn't eat any animals either. And like this, you're gonna get safe from karma ultimately. And this is when it all clicked for me. I said, oh, well, I've been getting sick here because my karma is bad, and I have to cleanse my karma out. And this is only done by not killing at all anymore, by abstaining from meats. So this is how I got into veganism initially. It was spiritually motivated. So it went hand in hand with Buddhism, Hinduism, and all of those things. However, because it was spiritually motivated and had nothing to do anymore with healthy eating, with bodybuilding, it just had to do with a spiritual pursuit, quote unquote. This is why I went into the extreme there as well. And I kept on researching, and believe it or not, there is like a pyramid of nutrition and abstaining from foods until you reach enlightenment. So the ideology is that meat, dairy, cheese keeps you very, very low frequency in a very, very low dense vibration. This is the vibration of the caveman, of the animals, right? And you want to ascend, of course. So you leave that behind, and now you become vegetarian, right? So now you're eating some eggs, maybe a little bit of milk, but you're not killing anymore. So thank God, now you're leveled up, so to speak, right? So you eat more and more vegetables, and you see that your frequency is getting purer. You're emanating more light, they say. That is the vegetarian nur. So, but that is, of course, not enough, right? Because ultimately there is still suffering involved in stealing the eggs from animals and milking them for their milk. They don't want that. So therefore, you have to abstain from that as well. And now you become a vegan. However, cooking your food is destroying the enzymes, is destroying the life energy. Now you're killing the plants. So the next logical step is you have to eat the plants alive. And like that, they will give you the alive energy. So you're abstaining from the cooked vegetables, and now you're just eating raw vegetables, raw fruits. However, now the next step is that you realize that the vegetables, they do not want to be eaten either, but the fruits want to be eaten. That's crazy. Bear with me. The tree itself produces the fruits only to be eaten. And that is actually even biochemically correct, because every plant has defense chemicals. For example, seeds have anti-nutrients. However, the fruit does not. That is correct. The fruit actually wants to be eaten, and then you, as the host, so to speak, spit out the seed and propagate that plant indirectly. So the plant itself actually wants you to eat that fruit. And like that, you start pollinating and spreading that fruit or that fruit tree everywhere.
Yep.
So that's the next step. You become a fruitarian now, which I was as well. So now you're eating only fruits, nothing else. And during that time, I had days, for example, I would eat just 30 bananas. Disgusting. I don't know how I did it, but I would just eat 30 bananas, 3 meals per day, 10 bananas each, right? And so when you've done that and you realize, somehow I don't feel that good, dummy, because you're just eating fruits, then you realize, my body is still intoxicated, still dirty because of my previous past of eating so much meat. And now it is time to fast. And now you do a juice fast, then you do a water fast, and all of this aspiring to reach the top of the pyramid, which is a breatharian. The breatharian is allegedly somebody, some guru, some master that ascended so far that he doesn't even need food at all anymore. And you just live off air, prana, and sun energy. This is really what they believe. This is really what they believe. It's crazy.
I had no idea you did it because of like a faith-based thing. Like, I had no idea.
During that time, I did it because I really believe that. I mean, to not blame myself too much, if you look at our society, there's so much misinformation coming from the mainstream. So be it during the past few years with the flu and the masking and the jabbing and all of those things, that it is not strange that then somebody starts questioning everything, Then you look at NASA and you look at the CGI images and all of that stuff, and you think, okay, everything is wrong. Everything is wrong, and therefore the nutrition must be wrong as well. What is everybody eating? Everybody's eating meat, so that must be wrong. Only a small percentile of people are vegetarians, are vegans. So therefore, by default, that must be true then. This was my extreme thinking. I thought that the lesser people do it, the truer it must be, right? That's why. Then I heard stories about certain Hindus being in forests, living by themselves just next to a tree and breathing the tree energy and whatnot. So I really tried that, right? And after a while, I found myself being so starved that I weighed only 60 kilograms. Fun fact, I started bodybuilding when I was 16 years old. I weighed only 60 kilograms. And then I ballooned up to 120 kilograms. So I put on an additional Bobby onto my frame, so to speak. And then after that, I lost it again because through fruitarianism and raw veganism, I went back to 60 kilograms. Yeah, it was absolutely insane. And so this is at that peak mental instability. This is when I make my appearance on YouTube, because I thought I have something to share here. Everybody should know the good news about eating only fruits and working out in Thailand.
Okay, so I've done a bit of research. I'm familiar with veganism from, when I used to watch a lot of fitness stuff on YouTube, trainers and bodybuilding videos. Every now and then, veganism stuff would pop up, so I got familiar with it pretty early on. But anyways, I just wanted to so I googled the potential side effects of veganism. So I want to read them out to you, and let's see what you can relate with. Okay, so the vitamins, the nutrients you would be deficient in, possibly deficient in, would be B12, omega-3 fatty acids, zinc, iron, iodine, vitamin D, and calcium. Is there anything you would add to that, or was that pretty much it?
Anything? No, that's definitely not pretty much it. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah. So first and foremost, contrary to popular belief, you actually need cholesterol. So you don't have cholesterol. It is true that the body can produce cholesterol, but only small amounts. And there is even a medical term for that called cholesterolemia, if I hope I pronounced it correctly, where your body goes into a cholesterol deficiency. So first and foremost, you're missing cholesterol. Every single hormone in your body, its precursor is cholesterol. That's just what it is. And therefore, if you don't ingest cholesterol, you see hormonal imbalances. Many vegan women, for example, they're losing their menstrual cycle. Many vegan men, they're becoming infertile, etc., etc. So therefore, cholesterol is super crucial. Another nutrient that you don't have is creatine. It's technically an amino acid.
Yes.
Creatine you don't have. That goes so far, which is quite entertaining to me personally. It's a little troll, a little mock at the vegans, but it is a fact. They did studies on regular people and on vegans, and they saw a huge increase in brain performance when they supplemented vegans with creatine.
Yeah.
Their brain performance, I believe, was 70 or 80% higher than it was beforehand. Not in comparison to the meat eaters, but in comparison to themselves, not eating any creatine-containing foods. And creatine is almost exclusively found in red meat, such as beef, for example. So therefore, you don't have creatine at all. You don't have carnosine either. Carnosine is another amino acid, which by the name, people can understand. Carnivore, is only found in meat as well. Goes so far as well that we have receptors in our gut which react to carnosine. And this is why you feel satiated after eating meat, because your receptors, they recognize that you ingested carnosine. But plants do not have carnosine, so you will never feel full after eating plants. You're missing that.
So you probably end up overeating as well, right? Just more carbs, eating more rice, potatoes, trying to feel satiated, but you just can't really do it.
You never feel satiated. You only feel stuffed. That's the only way you can feel satisfied after eating a vegan meal. So the only way to feel satisfied, you're mistaking it for satisfaction when you bloat yourself. That's when you feel full. L-carnitine is missing as well. So pretty similar amino acids, only found in meat as well. Vitamin B12 you mentioned. Vitamin B6, there is a specific vitamin B6, which is pyridoxine, is not found in any plant either. And a lack in pyridoxine leads to depression. Even that goes so far that people, especially on the Balkans, it's quite common that when you're depressed, before you get antidepressants, you get pyridoxine, a pure form of B6 vitamin supplementation. And yeah, a lack of it can make you depressed, which yet again, vegans are, generally speaking, quite depressed people, not only because they're abstaining from very, very delicious steaks, but because they're lacking B6 as well. Another thing, I don't know if you mentioned it, DHA and EPA. You don't have DHA and EPA.
Yeah, omega-3 fatty acids.
Exactly. Yeah. You do have ALA, which is a plant oil, which can get converted into omega-3 fatty acids in some people, but many people can't. Another huge one is vitamin A. You don't have any vitamin A in plants. You have beta carotene. And beta carotene, I saw a study in Scottish women that cannot convert it at all. So they can eat as many carrots and sweet potatoes as they want. They cannot convert it at all to vitamin A. So that's another deficiency. You don't have any vitamin D3 in plants. You don't have any vitamin K2, which is the MK4 version. You don't have that either. And so on and so forth. So you have at least 16, 17 lacking nutrients in plants. And this is only what we know till now, right? So who tells you that there is not another nutrient missing?
Yeah.
Because we haven't discovered all the nutrients. And this is scientific consensus as well. We do not know about all the nutrients in food.
Yeah, so clearly the research I just Googled it, and that's what I wanted to do, because if people always Google stuff, and whatever first comes up, that's what they read. So that's just what I found, but clearly they're holding back on some stuff. I do have a list of some side effects from being deficient in these nutrients. So first, I think you already mentioned depression and anxiety, which is a result in deficiency of omega-3 and zinc. Now it's interesting because when I used to come across these vegan channels and I watch a bit of the content, a lot of them they didn't seem right mentally. They didn't seem too happy. It's like something in their eyes, and I always thought that without even doing the research and understanding why? I just thought to myself, they talk a bit funny. They don't seem 100%. SubhanAllah.
Yeah, that's your common sense. And that being said, it's not even a secret, big vegan YouTubers, males and females alike, they're reporting on their depression, and they're reportedly on antidepressants as well. So this is not a secret. Many big YouTubers, I'm not going to mention them now, but they're talking about digestive issues so far that they're bleeding in their pants, right? They're bleeding out of their buttholes. Absolutely horrible. And they're on antidepressants. But at the same time, they're promoting this diet. And if you tell them, okay, this is due to veganism, obviously it must be something that you're eating, otherwise you wouldn't be bleeding. They tell you that you're some sort of bigot, some sort of carny tart that has no idea what he's talking about. I'm like, okay, well, then go on and suffer if you must.
Yeah, because for most of them, I think it's because it's just about the animals, right? Like you were talking about a whole like spiritual thing, and that was a part of it, right? Like not killing animals, but it's like they want to, they feel so bad for the animals that they're willing to go through this pain to just so they can avoid the animal, animal food.
Sacrificing themselves for the animal. That would be absolutely okay if it was their motivation or their only motivation. I have no issues with that. If you want to tell me, hey, I want to sacrifice myself for the animals and I'm actually suffering health-wise, I would say, okay, go for it. If you have to, have fun.
If you're happy.
However, they're making those nutritional claims. They're telling you that the diet is nutritionally superior to a meat-based diet, which is not. So if you're making such claims, you have to present the evidence. And moreover, at least you could present anecdotal evidence by yourself being healthy. Why would I listen to a sick person to begin with?
Yeah,
right.
Exactly, 100%. It's interesting because,
No, proceed. That's fine.
Yeah, I'm just saying it's interesting. We'll get into the carnivore soon, but when I was looking into okay, what does Google say about side effects of carnivore, and it doesn't compare at all. So we'll keep going through the veganism. We'll get to the carnivore soon. Next side
that's
effect.
What I want to ask you. Should I say check after the side effect if I had it as well? Because depression, anxiety.
Oh yeah, sorry. We should. Yeah, did you suffer from depression and anxiety?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I mentioned previously, I was never depressed in my life. However, when I got sick in 2011, that was the only time I experienced some sort of depression, but linked to me being extremely sick. Every time I was healthy, there was no need for me to be depressed about anything. I would always find an outlet in sport, in friends and whatnot. So there was always something to do. I was never a depressed person. However, when I was a vegan, I got so depressed and socially anxious. I never had that. I was always comfortable around people. I had never issues talking to people, approaching people, none whatsoever. However, when I was a vegan, I got scared of going out. Believe it or not, I was staying home and I was scared of going out. I couldn't, I was losing myself. I had like a disorder of not being identified with me anymore. Personality disorder, I think. It was crazy. I couldn't. The craziest thing is my wife, back then she was my girlfriend, she said, looking at me, that she doesn't recognize me anymore because I cannot make a decision anymore. I cannot make a decision whatsoever. And before that, I was very decisive. I say, okay, now we're doing this. Now we're doing that. No worries. She would ask me, hey, do you want to go to the restaurant? It would take me 10 minutes thinking about it if I want to do that. I became so indecisive. I had so much brain fog, so depressed. It was absolutely insane. So yeah, veganism made me extremely depressed and anxious. And for, again, the naysayers here, after eating one egg, I was back to normal. So don't tell me it was not veganism, man. I ate one egg and after I felt great and went out. I had a good time. So it was definitely veganism. Please proceed with the.
Yeah, I love eggs, man.
Yeah, eggs are fantastic. Super food.
Okay. Other potential side effect would be hair loss.
That's a veganism.
Is it really the cause or not?
No, it's not. No, I had hair loss before that. It was, I believe, 5 years before I went vegan. So I cannot blame the veganism on that.
Yeah. So that would be a deficiency in
zinc,
in adequate protein, zinc, and iron.
Yeah. Now you see many vegans developing hair loss for sure. For me, the damage was already done. So I don't know if I lost any more hair. I always shave it, so it could be.
Yeah. But your beard lasted well. Alhamdulillah.
That thing cannot fall out, man.
And you had a bigger beard when you were a vegan. If people can see in the thumbnail.
Way bigger,
SubhanAllah, it's very big. Yeah, you can really grow it out, man. MashaAllah. Okay, so next we have hypothyroidism. so which is a lack of iodine or iodine, however you want to pronounce it.
That's
which is
correct.
an underactive thyroid, which can affect your heart rate, body temperature, and metabolism.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is pretty scary to think. I mean, just a few degrees change in body temperature, and you're in the hospital. SubhanAllah.
Exactly right. Which I was. I was in and out of the hospital quite a bit, and I still have the blood tests somewhere. I'm sure I could find them. And my thyroid was under-functioning during that time. I was consistently cold. I was in Thailand during that time, so I don't have to tell you that it's a tropical country, super hot. I was freezing. I was so cold all the time. It was insane. Nothing could warm me up, essentially. I was sleeping with a big blanket in Thailand. And that being said, every time I would go to the hospital, people that have been to Thailand, they know. They always do this routine check for whatever reason, no matter what it is. If you go there for, you have let's say, a pinched finger or something, they're still going to take your blood pressure. They always do. They take your blood pressure, they take your weight and your height every single time. It's routine in Thailand. But every time they would take my blood pressure, it was so extremely low that they would take it 5 times in a row because they couldn't believe it. They thought I'm dead. They really thought I'm dead. My blood pressure was totally low. I think it was, I don't want to lie to you now, but something like 80 to 30 or so. Super low, barely existing. Yeah.
So bottom, top and bottom was too low. Yeah.
Super low. Yeah. Something like that.
Yeah.
Very, very low.
Okay. So next we have, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this correctly, sarcopenia, which is muscle loss, which because of an inadequate of high quality protein. Clearly, you suffered from muscle loss.
100%. Sarcopenia. No, I really did. Yeah, sarcopenia. I lost 60 kilograms. On that note, I want to clarify one thing as well, in case vegans are watching and they're going to talk smack again. Yes, it is true. The raw veganism, the fruitarian phase, that was absolutely just for spiritual purposes, had nothing to do with health or anything to do with bodybuilding. However, because I was in it for the animals, I really was ideology in it for the animals, that's how they call it, for the animals, I wanted to ride it out till death, basically. However, I realized that all of this spiritual seeking doesn't bring me anywhere. So I said, okay, if I want to keep on going with veganism and I want to be a good representative of veganism, I have to become healthy. And this is when I went on a whole food plant-based diet, and I used all of my knowledge from bodybuilding and adapted it to veganism. So what that means is I was tracking my macros and micros every single day, and on paper, I was getting everything. I was getting vitamin A, which again is derived from beta carotene. However, my digital chronometer showed me that I was getting everything. I was eating up to 180 grams of protein, plant protein, protein shakes, lentils, and all of that stuff, right? So there was a time when I was eating only whole food plant-based for 1.5 years because I wanted to build muscle yet again and show that you can be strong as a vegan, right? I want to make that very, very clear. But nevertheless, I was still losing muscle. And I realized that as well here in Thailand when I went to a competitive bodybuilding gym and I saw males and females alike lifting weights and just ballooning up. And I thought to myself, well, there was a time when I was doing that as well. And it was quite easy and it was quite pleasurable, enjoyable. I had fun doing it. And now I'm sitting there in the gym suffering, man. You can't even imagine. Not this no pain, no gain attitude. Not the pain that is fun. No, the pain where it hurts and tells you, please go home. My body is just destroyed. I can't do anything anymore. My body didn't want to get out of bed, didn't want to go for a walk, let alone go to a gym. But I became very, very caffeine addicted during that time. And I would go to those 7-Elevens here and drink a liter of iced coffee and still go to the gym and try to make it work, rupture my tendons, rupture my biceps. I tore my biceps, I tore my hamstring, all of those things just to maintain some muscle. But I kept on losing. So yeah, it is a very, very, very dire reality of veganism that you will lose muscle.
Yeah, I actually saw, I can't remember if it was Instagram or which social media it was, but you were bench pressing tires.
Yeah.
Pretty big tires too, but that was just funny to see.
Yeah, that was in a outdoor gym here in Bangkok as well. Yeah, that's when I was like 60 kilograms or so.
Yeah.
Super gaunt and I was
Mm.
bench pressing those tires.
Okay, so next we have dermatitis. Sorry?
No, No, check. We had that side effect too, I said.
You had dermatitis?
No. The prior one, the previous one with the muscle loss.
Muscle loss, yeah. Sarcopenia, yep. So
Sarcopenia.
dermatitis, which is known also as skin inflammation, which can result in rashing or flaky skin, being deficient in zinc and protein.
Yeah, Alhamdulillah, I didn't have that. My skin was very, very dry in the end, so I had to moisturize it all the time, which I don't have any issues with whatsoever. My wife, she is half African, so they are always moisturizing their feet and whatnot. It's in their culture. I don't know if they really need it or not, but they're always moisturizing. Me from the Balkan, I never used any moisturizing product whatsoever. I could have made some buck selling a beard oil or so, but I don't use anything in my beard either. But back then when I was vegan, I was using a lot of coconut oil and just moisturizing myself all day long because my skin was so extremely dry, very thin and dry. But no, I didn't get any dermatitis or anything on those lines, thank God. I never had any skin issues previously to that either. So during the bodybuilding time, for example, many of my friends, they would get acne and whatnot. I never had any skin issues whatsoever. I never had a pimple in my face. Just genetic.
Was that due to certain supplements or
supplements? The Balkan supplements, the pharmacy there. Balkan supplements, the Galenica. It's called.
Okay, yeah. Okay, now anemia, which is an iron deficiency, and vitamin B12, which results in not having enough red blood cells.
Yeah,
my issue with your iron levels.
Yeah, my iron was a bit low, but thank God still in the range, but pretty low in comparison to what it is now. However, yet again, my wife, which went vegan with me, she was always struggling with good iron levels. And when she went vegan, she became completely anemic. They want to inject her with iron. She was taking iron supplements and nothing helped, by the way. Those supplements didn't help whatsoever. The body would just flush them out again. So the only thing that helped with her back then was a ketogenic/carnivore diet. So I experienced that here, not on my own body, but my wife had it. And like that, she became normal and fertile again. So anemia is a very, very big issue because that's another nutrient that's missing. Actually, we didn't list that one. It's heme iron. So heme iron is only found in red meat. You don't have heme iron in vegetables at all. So you have a plant equivalent, allegedly, but it's not getting absorbed whatsoever. And we see that in vegans. Heme iron is much better absorbed and it's only found in meat. The vegans go so far to tell you that it's absorbed too much by the body, and that's why it's unhealthy. That's why you shouldn't eat meat, because your body just gets saturated with that bad iron, which is, of course, ridiculous. So the point being is that red meat iron is much more bioavailable, and like that, you don't get anemic.
Okay, yeah. And also for women, when they menstruate as well, obviously they lose blood as well, so it'd make it even more worse for them. SubhanAllah.
Exactly. That's why she went full-blown anemic.
SubhanAllah. Okay, so this is the last one basically, but you can probably add more to the list. So osteoporosis, bone fractures, so bones becoming weak and brittle, which is being deficient in vitamin D and calcium.
Yeah, thank God I didn't have any bone injury. For me, it was predominantly muscle tears and tendons, etc., etc. But yes, it is correct. We have many so-called vegan doctors, which are celebrities in the vegan world, if you will, and plenty of them fall and just break bones, and then they're 40s, maybe 50s, but it shouldn't happen at that age. If you're 70, 80, then there's a potential reality, but not at that age. So yeah, brittle bones is definitely a reality as well in veganism. What I'd like to add to that list is the main one is brain fog. You cannot articulate yourself, you cannot concentrate, you cannot focus whatsoever. It's amazing how easily that is lifted by eating eggs or salmon. It just goes away right away. After ingesting a little bit of fish, you feel back to normal. That brain fog was lasting for years. I mean, just imagine feeling like you are hungover for years, just for years, all the time. Your body, your brain is not functioning. So brain fog is probably the worst. I would even say that it's the worst, because if you are in a constant daze, you will never realize that you're actually suffering. It's, as if you're under the influence all the time. And that's why I believe that many vegans stay vegan, because they don't realize that they are suffering. They lose brain cells, if you will, which is another side effect of veganism as well. as I mentioned, the creatine, your brain performance goes down. It just goes down. It is scientifically proven. So when you are a vegan, you're on a vegan diet, your brain performance goes down. It's fact. It's not just, again, meat talk here, carny talk. It is the reality. It is scientifically proven that your brain performance goes down. So if your brain performance goes down, it is almost like the chicken and the egg, right? What was there first, the chicken or the egg? What's there first, the mental illness or the veganism? And just keeps on circling. And then you don't even know why you went vegan in the first place and why you should drop out again. Right? So it's very vicious. It's a vicious cycle.
Yeah, it's interesting because creatine got popularized in the bodybuilding fitness industry, obviously for increasing performance, strength, but now we're seeing it more as a health supplement. Naturopaths are recommending creatine for what you just mentioned, for brain function. SubhanAllah.
Exactly. Yeah, even in the, what do you call those guys? The biohacking community, they're using creatine for brain performance as well.
Okay.
Biohackers, you know. Yeah, that's that. Another side effect that I suffered from was decaying teeth. So that would be bones as well, if you will. So decaying teeth, it went so far that they had to replace teeth. I had to get crowns as well. They had to pull teeth. And I never had any teeth issues. It was so severe, man, that my nerves got inflamed and I was suffering headaches for months and months on end until they had to pull the teeth finally. And nowadays I don't have any tooth pain whatsoever. Up until recently, I was wearing the Invisalign. The Invisalign is like a bracelet, and like that, I fixed my teeth again, like they're back to normal. They became crooked, they became yellow, discolored, but now they're back to normal, more or less. Thank God.
Alhamdulillah.
That was definitely terrible. Another major side effect is libido loss for males and females alike. You lose libido, sexual function goes out of the window, and that is very easily explained why that is so, because your body is in a survival mode, so it doesn't think about procreating whatsoever. That is secondary. First, it thinks about food, which brings you to the next side effect. You're consistently thinking about food all the time. So when I was a vegan, the first year was still okay, but the second year, third year, and certainly the fourth year, I was only thinking about food all the time. You can't imagine how unsatisfying that is and how daunting it is. So I would eat, and then after that, I would think about food. And then I would eat something again, and I would think about food. And then I would be thinking about my next meal, how I would prep it, how I would cook it. I would just think about food. And this is why you see so many vegan recipe channels and how they're obsessed with making their meals look pretty, like little flower bouquets, many, many different colors and whatnot, because they're absolutely obsessed with food. They do not know the feeling of being satisfied after eating. When I eat a steak and a bowl of rice, maybe, I'm done. I don't think about food at all anymore. That's it. Done.
Exactly.
They don't know that feeling. And I didn't know that feeling for 3 years at least.
Yeah, because it's funny you mentioned earlier you were eating like 30 bananas. And I remember like some years back just seeing and my wife came across her like on Instagram or something, a vegan woman just always eating bananas, you know?
Freely.
And sitting at a table and a plethora of fruits. Like I'm thinking, how are you even eating that much? You know, like what's something wrong with you or what's going on? It's so strange.
Yeah, she was from Australia as well. Freely.
Yeah, probably the same one. Yeah, probably the same one.
Yeah, she was infamous for that, eating 30 bananas a day, eating 10 watermelons. I don't know what she was doing. Yeah, she's a fruitarian now as well, allegedly, and she lives in the jungle somewhere with her boyfriend, not shaving anymore, not shaving her hair and arm hair. Yeah, it's a statement. She hates men now as well. That type of woman.
Wow.
Yeah, no, the side effects are never ending. Digestive issues as well. Guys, close your ears if you don't want to hear it. I went to the toilet 16 times per day. 16 times, having diarrhea, belly cramps, feeling nauseous, all of those things. And I kept on going. I tried to fix it. In the end, as I said, I was on a whole food plant-based diet that was certified by the World Health Organization, allegedly the healthiest diet on the planet, and I was taking roughly 15 supplements. For all the nutrients that we were talking about that a vegan diet is lacking, I was taking the equivalent supplement. So I was taking iron, I was taking the L-carnitin, the carnicin, I was taking the B6, I was taking all of those supplements in order to fix my diet, which right there should tell you that your diet isn't working, but none of it helped. I was still deficient in all of those things. Nothing got absorbed whatsoever. Because what many people don't know is that many vitamins are fat-soluble vitamins, and that means you actually need fat for them to get absorbed in the first place. But if you're not eating any animal fats, how will they get absorbed? It doesn't work. And plants do not have fat. They have oils. Plant oils are molecularly different than animal fats, which is what it is. And so therefore, they do not get absorbed anyways. You can chuck down as many vitamin A pills as you want. You're just going to pee them out. Nothing will happen.
Interesting. So because I take vitamin D3 every day, like 5,000 IUs, which seems to be a pretty average what naturopaths will prescribe nowadays. What bodybuilders are taking. I'm not advising to take that much, but because the average is like 1,000 IUs a day, but I just take 5. But because normally after breakfast I have like oats and there's peanut butter in there. But now that you said that, I'm thinking, well, the peanut butter it's not the right fats, right?
Right.
To be having with
it's not the correct fat. Peanut butter. Aside from that, the risk with peanut butter is as well that it comes with aflatoxins, which is like a mold almost that can form on peanuts. And they never get rid of it 100%. So I know it tastes delicious, but I wouldn't eat peanut butter every single day.
Okay, fair enough. Is that from the pesticides that get? Because I've heard that the peanuts are very much heavily. They use the pesticides, chemicals on them. Yeah, I do like it, but apparently almond butter.
Everybody does.
Apparently, almond butter is a better choice.
I personally don't eat any nut butters because they all come with certain defense chemicals because they're seeds after all. So nuts are nothing else but seeds, and I do not eat them anymore at all. I mean, again, in a healthy body, you will get away with it, but it's not the best fuel. I'd rather just eat regular butter. I know that regular butter doesn't go well with oats, but it's the healthier source of fats. It's quite interesting because if you look at veganism yet again, and you look at the digestion of fiber cannot be digested. It's actually called insoluble fiber, right? However, when you pass fiber through the digestive system and it enters the last part of your digestive system, it gets broken down, not digested, but broken down into butyrate. And butyrate is a short-chain fatty acid. And guess what? Butyrate, you can already hear it, is found in butter as a short-chain fatty acid. So that means even on a vegan diet where you don't want to eat short-chain fatty acids because they're also unhealthy, your body would break down the fiber that you're eating and it would break it down into butyrate, which you can find much more available in butter in the first place. So butter is the much better fat source for that.
I do have ghee.
Ghee is great as well. Same.
I use it for cooking sometimes when we run out of olive oil. And I think it tastes better with, because I normally use olive oil, but I think with ghee, fried eggs taste better.
Way better.
It gives a nice, better taste to it. Yeah, nice. Okay, so leaving the veganism, how was that for you? What?
I haven't talked about this in a long time. Veganism, leaving it at first was very traumatic because, as I said, roughly 2.5 years into veganism, I was already completely destroyed. My teeth were rotting. I was depressed. I was anxious. I was losing weight, all of those things. However, I told myself, because I have to stick with it for the animals. I have to stick with it. And I was already doing YouTube content. I want to represent veganism. I thought it's a positive message. People to abstain from the dirty, dirty flesh, the evil flesh of the slaughtered victims of the meat industry. That's what I was thinking. And therefore, I dragged it out another 1.5 years. And so during that year, I tried everything, as I said, be it a whole food plant-based diet, be it the supplementation, be it going to doctor visits, etc., etc. And during that time, I was battling with myself as well, not to give up. But then in the end, I couldn't do it anymore. I simply couldn't do it anymore because my health was crumbling. My then girlfriend was looking at me and she saw me just fading away, being on my deathbed. I didn't want to leave my place anymore. I was just living on my bed in front of my laptop. And so this is when I said, okay, I'm going to try an experiment for 7 days. I'm just going to experiment. What I'm going to do is I'm going to eat 1 raw egg per day because I thought that raw eggs are disgusting back then. Nowadays, I actually don't mind them. I like them. But back then I said, I'm going to try the most disgusting thing. So I'm not going to get emotionally attached to the taste. Because if I would go to McDonald's, for example, I would say, hey, veganism sucks, right? And eating meat is fantastic. But by eating an egg raw, I wouldn't taste much. And it would be a real experiment. It would be for the sake of science, if you will. Before that, I was eating chia seeds, roughly 20 grams or so, I believe, if I do the calculation correctly. And I took them out of my meal plan and I was tracking everything. And I replaced it with 1 egg. And so after that egg, as I said, right away, I started feeling much, much better. But it was day 3 when I felt crystal clear. I felt totally back to my normal self again. It was amazing, but I didn't want to believe it. And I said to myself, yeah, well, I got some good sunshine. We did some activity here. Maybe it's not due to the egg, And after those 7 days, I really felt great. I stopped eating eggs again because I wanted to return to veganism. That's, yeah.
You ate 1 egg each day, or was it just the
just
one egg?
Just 1 egg
And
each
it lasted
day
you 7 days.
7 days.
It gave you that. Wow.
No, 1 egg each day. 7 days.
Okay,
7
day,
eggs.
Yeah.
7
but
days.
Still,
7
like
eggs.
it's 1 egg.
It's
man.
just 1 egg.
SubhanAllah. It's amazing.
1 egg a day keeps the doctor away. So I tried this 1 egg. It was amazing. And after the 7th day, I felt fantastic, to be totally honest. And I really got a motivation for life back because I was so depressed before that. But I got my motivation back for life. But still, I said, nah, you know what? I don't feel ethically congruent with this because I've been a vegan for 4 years. I'm going to stop it and I'm going to go back to veganism. Okay, you can do that, right? You have your free will. God will let you suffer if you want to go for it. Have fun. So I went back to veganism, and 1 month of absolute agony. Like after 2 days or so with no eggs, I hit rock bottom again, cold turkey. And I felt so terrible, man. I got back to my depression. I was just sad all the time, exhausted. And I suffered like that, like a dog for the whole 30 days.
Wow.
Then, and I will never forget this, I had to do a visa run because back then I wasn't on a long-term visa here in Thailand. So every 3 months or so, I had to leave the country, go to Vietnam or something, and then come back. So I went to Vietnam by myself, and I was just crushed. I saw people around me having a good time, drinking coffees, going to restaurants and whatnot. And I'm just miserable. I left Germany, I left the Balkans, left Europe to go on this epic journey. And now I'm in Vietnam, traveling the world, and I hate it. I hate myself. I can't do it anymore. And so I looked around and I said to myself, you know what? I'm going to eat something that I haven't eaten before, which is probably disgusting as well. That's how I was thinking back then. And I'm just going to do it again for the sake of experimentation. So what I did is I went to sushi. I went to a Japanese restaurant eating raw fish, right? Disgusting. So I went to the Japanese restaurant, and the funny thing is back then my YouTube channel was very, very small. However, the vegan community in Asia is pretty big. And so oftentimes I would get recognized when I was on the islands here in Thailand. They would recognize me, hey, it's Bobby's Perspective, etc. So when it wasn't that restaurant, man, I felt like a serial killer. I felt like a serial killer. I was so ashamed that they will see me, the other vegans there in Asia. And I went to the counter there and I ordered a sushi plate. I was ashamed. I really felt like I was ordering, I don't know, like a like a hit on a person,
Is that yeah? Is that because you had your YouTube channel that you worried people recognize you? Or
I was worried because of my YouTube channel, yes. But for me, myself, ordering a dead animal, ordering a dead fish, felt like ordering somebody to kill a person. Really, that's how it felt like. I was so deep into it. It felt so strange to me. So I ordered it, and the person at the counter was smiling at me, and I interpreted it as like, yeah, she's smiling at me because I'm ordering dead fish. It was absolute craziness, man. So anyways, she gave me that sushi platter, and I was hiding, like this, and I just ate it in 2 minutes or so. 2 minutes at best.
Yeah.
I was fighting with myself. I found it disgusting as well. I was telling myself, but actually it tastes quite good. I chucked it down, and again, after 2 minutes or so, I felt fantastic. I felt fantastic, man.
Yeah.
I went out to Saigon City. The colors seemed brighter. The people were smiling. I felt fantastic right away,
Was it salmon or?
It was salmon. It was tuna. It was every fish on the menu. I ordered a piece of every fish. It was shark, everything. I ate everything. Yeah.
I like the grilled. They fire it with the burner.
Yeah.
The salmon in that.
Yeah, I ate them all. So after that, again, I went out and I felt better, but I told myself yet again the same old story. However, I couldn't battle on anymore. So I told myself, you know what? Last experiment before I go back to veganism or not. I'm going to do again 7 days, but this time 7 days sushi every single day. And so I would go to all you can eat sushi buffets and really load up on that sushi. I would just eat it and force it down. And as I said, my girlfriend, she would look at me and I would force it down. Like, oh, why do I have to do this? I would almost cry there eating the sushi like an idiot. However, at day 3 of that experiment, I realized that I cannot go ever back to veganism. because I felt so fantastic. My brain was back to normal. My mood was back to normal. My libido was back. Everything was back. I felt fantastic. And I said, okay, now I have to stop it and tell everybody on YouTube that veganism is shit. You know, excuse my French here, but I just have to, because now I see it. I see it now. I cannot fight it any longer. I have to proclaim this, you know. And that's why. So during that time, that's why as well, you know, with backlash on YouTube, I don't really care, because back then my whole channel was about veganism. My audience, everybody was a vegan. And then I just declared, okay, guys, veganism sucks. I'm not going to do this anymore. And everybody just posted, unfollow. How could you do that? We thought you would be the last one standing. Yeah, but anyways. And that's how I quit veganism. It took me quite some time, but ultimately, Alhamdulillah for quitting it. And quite interesting, I want to add this, that once I stopped veganism, this when I started remembering God. All of a sudden, I started remembering God, because during that time, as I said, Buddhism, Hinduism, shamanism, psychedelics, and veganism, all of it went hand in hand. But once I started eating fish again, and then later meat again, I started becoming more and more grounded, and I started to see the world for what it is, and I started looking for God. You know, that's how it all came back. So nutrition is very, very important, man. And this is why I believe, I'm actually willing to bet on this, that cults, for example, the Osho, the Maharishis, all of those cults from back in the day, the hippie cults, they all feed the cults participants a vegan or a vegetarian diet. And I believe they do that to bring them away from God and make them more susceptible, because you're in a weakened mindset. Your brain is operating on very, very low fuel. And this is when you just believe everything they tell you.
Yeah, it's like when the cults use like psychedelics as well and stuff.
As well. Psychedelics and a vegetarian or vegan diet. Both goes hand in hand, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So moving on to carnivore, how did that happen? So you didn't become a carnivore straight away, did you?
Almost instantly. So first it was this gateway food, the egg, right? That's how everybody starts. And then it became fish, and then slowly but surely became meat. However, what I realized is that the more plants I remove from my diet, the better I feel. And then I just noticed, you know what? In life, when you are not on the narrow path, you're not on the straight path, you go into one extreme. To get back to the straight and narrow path, you can't just go back, I feel. But you have to go to the other extreme before you circle back again. That's what I noticed.
Okay.
And so therefore, when I was just eating plants, I was so far away from the straight path, but I couldn't just return. I noticed that every time I would remove a plant, I would feel better. So at first I was eating sushi. So that was still rice and some raw fish, but the other meals were still kind of plant-based. So I would still have some salads, I would still have some oats, etc., etc. But then when I would remove the salads, for example, I started feeling way better. And then when I removed the oats, even better. And in the end, I was left with eating only fish, meat, and rice. And that's how I felt pretty good. But I said, you know what? What will happen if I remove the rice as well? It's the last plant I'm still eating. Let's remove the rice. And that's when the healing happened. I really have to say that. I sometimes go back to a carnivore diet. I just did a 6-week carnivore, not really experiment, but a 6-week carnivore phase just a month ago. And it feels great for me to return to carnivore for healing. And that's what it did. After veganism, I most certainly needed the carnivore diet just to give my body a rest. My digestion, that was so wrecked, as I said, I was going to the toilet 16 times per day, only went back to normal when I went carnivore. And then after that, I could reintroduce certain other foods. But that period of carnivore, of meat only, was absolutely needed to balance out again. My body could not potentially heal as long as I had any plants in my diet. So therefore, when I tell you eat your vegetables, it is also healthy, etc., etc., nah, man, quite the opposite. The vegetables were still making my health. So I had to remove all of them in order to heal up.
Guys, if you have any questions for Brother Bobby or myself, make sure to send them through. If you send a super chat, guaranteed they'll be answered. Otherwise, I'll be flicking through the chat and just picking a couple of questions to answer. I forgot one thing about the veganism that if we could quickly going into, if you don't mind. I remember that when this Netflix documentary came out called The Game Changers. What do you think of The Game Changers? Because they made it seem pretty, what's the word? Pretty convincing, right? Seemed pretty convincing. So the guy
game
that made it, I forgot his name. But he was a UFC fighter, right? That
John
he
Wilk.
was a part of.
John
Yeah.
Wilk, I believe.
So, so of course they use a professional athlete to promote it. So he teamed up with some other people, made this documentary. Now, what are your thoughts on that? I remember the I think it was a guy from Iran. He was a strongman.
Yeah, he's from Germany, but originally from Iran. Yeah. Patrick Baboumian in German. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
The thing is this. Now, the Game Changers was advertised during my time of veganism. So when I was a vegan, I believe for 1 year or so, they started showing material, trailers, teasers about the Game Changers. And we were waiting for that movie. Yeah, this is going to prove it. This will be the game changer, as they say, right? And I waited and I waited and I waited and I waited. And it took so long till I dropped out of veganism until this movie finally came out. And when I saw it, I was just recently back to eating meat. And I have to say, I was so disappointed by that movie. I said, this is absolute BS. So now, obviously, seeing what veganism did to me, but even the arguments that were presented, it was absolutely ridiculous. They're feeding them a burrito, and then they're feeding them a plant-based burrito. And all of a sudden, wow, you had more erections this night. Whoa, have you seen it? You shouldn't be eating burritos in the first place. What kind of experiment is that anyways, right? So try the experiment with eating only steak and then a plant-based burrito. Let's see who will have better stamina, who will have a better performance, right? It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But the people that they used, because Patrick Baboumian, he comes from Germany, and I'm familiar with him. So first and foremost, he never made it to the big stages. But no mock on him. You know, Patrick Baboumian is pretty short. I think he's 1.70 meters or something like that. He's not very tall. So therefore, he could never make it to the world's strongest man competition. Usually those guys are like 1.90 meters, 2 meters tall, super heavyweight guys, right?
Yeah.
For his weight division, he was a strong guy. However, he was meat-based, if you will, all of his life. All of his career and all of his records were set up as a meat eater. And then when he started declining as a vegan, that's when he becomes more famous and he shows himself as being strong. Yeah, guess what? I was a bodybuilder previously, right, prior to veganism myself. And I had so much muscle. Actually, matter of fact, can I share my screen here? I don't know if I can. Let me see.
I'm not sure. I haven't done it before.
Share screen. I can. Because I have two pictures here for myself when I was 23 years old.
Okay. Yeah.
Just 1 second. Let me see if that works. Window, entire screen. Let me see if that goes. Yeah, should. Just 1 second, guys. I just want to pull up some pictures here. So you can see how I look like. Not directly prior to veganism, but nevertheless, this was me back in the day at my peak bodybuilding career. And don't get too surprised because I had no beard back then either. And I was very, very tanned. Okay, here we go. Check this out. So I have it here. I don't know if you need to pull it up, bro. Can you see it right next to my window?
Yes. Is that you?
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, that's me. Yeah. I know it doesn't look like me, but
at first I thought it was Jay Cutler.
Yeah. Can you bring it? Yeah, there it is. Fantastic. So that's me.
That's you, bro. Wow.
That's me with 22 years old or 23 years old. So this is over 10 years ago.
Jeez.
Yeah. So this was my peak pretty much. Yeah. Even though I was a bit bigger than this as well. So here I'm pretty defined. Yeah. I had some hair left there as well, even though it was thinning a little bit there, you can see.
Yeah, it's hard to recognize you obviously because you're straining. Your face is straining. So there we go. Yes, that's more recognizable. Yeah. You look very similar to Callum von Moger. I think that's how you pronounce it. Have you seen him before?
Yeah. Tragedy with what has happened recently then.
Yeah, that stuff. Yeah, but so he was a bodybuilder.
Yeah. So that was me. And by the way, the guys that you see in the background, no mocking or anything, but they are the same age as I am. So those are 22-year-old normal people. And that's a 22-year-old genetically modified person here.
Genetically modified, yeah. I was going to ask, but I wasn't sure.
No, it's fine. We can talk about that in a bit as well. But anyways, my point being is that this is the muscle mass that I built up previously, right? And so then going into veganism, No, I didn't have that muscle mass anymore. I was much thinner already. However, I already had a basis. I already had something that I could build back up to with muscle memory, in a sense, right? So this is my frame back in the day, and then I become a vegan, and people see me and they think like, oh, boy, he has muscle because of veganism. No, not at all. Despite of veganism, right? This is all previously to veganism. And it was the same with Patrick Baboumian, because he, as I said, he set up his records previously. And the same applies to the MMA fighter as well. The MMA fighter became a vegan after his active career. So he never competed in MMA as a vegan, ever. Yep. Never happened, right? So yeah, that's something that you have to take into consideration. It is quite often like that. In the vegan and the raw vegan community, we see many genetically gifted, especially black people. I don't know why they're so attracted to the raw vegan community, but you see them from back in the day. They come as calisthenic guys into the scene, and then they hold on to some muscle, and then they say, yeah, this is due to veganism. No, it's not. It's not at all. It's despite veganism that you are still able to kind of cling on to your muscle mass that you previously cultivated, right? So therefore, the game changer for me was not a game changer at all. I found the argumentation absolutely ridiculous. And moreover, another fun fact here, I believe that by now, everybody except of Patrick Baboumian and John Wilkes have left veganism. All the athletes that you saw in the documentary are not vegan anymore. Okay. They all left veganism. Yes. I mean, Djokovic was in the documentary as well, I believe, right? Djokovic.
I can't remember. This a long time I saw it. I just it came to mind and I wanted to mention it. Yeah.
He's not vegan anymore. They talked about Serena Williams shortly. She's not vegan anymore, etc., etc. So the athletes that are in that documentary are not vegan anymore. And moreover, I don't want to laugh about it because it's not against the athletes. You know, they meant well and they want to be the best that they could be. However, all of their records started going down, started declining. They started performing really, really bad in weightlifting and running. It was terrible. So yeah, veganism, if you want to destroy your performance, it will most certainly be a game changer for you. 100%. But not the good
ones. So yeah, exactly, 100%. So just to mention quickly, and then we'll move on from about the documentary, but I forgot his name, Patrick, that bodybuilder guy.
Patrick Baboumian.
Baboumian, yeah. I remember this is the main thing I remember was the burritos and nothing to bag him out, but a very silly statement he made, which he pointed out to the bull or the ox and saying that it only eats grass and look how big and strong it is. Okay, so what if you just eat grass? What's going to happen to you?
Exactly. You know? It's absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, look how big and strong his digestive system is as well. They have hind guts where they can ferment fiber. You do not. So what kind of argument is that? Doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And the grass argument, exactly. And the grass argument is actually a very, very good argument, which many people don't really take into account because they're so used to modernity and they're so used to supermarkets, they don't understand what biology, what nature even means. Because if you would go into a natural environment, right? So let's say a natural environment in, Australia, where you're at. What would you find in the outback? There's so little plants, man. It's unbelievable. Most of them are poisonous anyways. So you would find some kangaroos, you would find some animals. That is your natural environment. Then if you would find some grass around, would you ever eat that? Could you ever digest it? No, you could not. So which leads then to the conclusion that most plants that we are consuming nowadays are actually man-made. And that is a fact. If you look at bananas, for example, wild bananas are this big and they're filled with seeds. That's a fact. So they have very, very little fruit flesh. So this is why we cultivated those Cavendish bananas. You would notice bananas don't have any seeds anymore. How come? Because we cultivated them. So nowadays they're not distributed with seeds anymore, but they're being cloned. You cut the plant and you distribute it like so. So they're sterile sugar bombs, right? Those plants you would not find in nature whatsoever. If your biological makeup is that of a herbivore, then you would start salivating when you pass by a park. You would see the grass and you would think to yourself, oh, amazing, so delicious. I want to eat this right now. But it's a fact. Or if you see leaves, it would seem delicious to you. But if you see a steak, it seems appetizing to you, right? Even here, when I'm outside, restaurants, they're advertising with big steaks. And you see that steak raw and you think to yourself, nice, delicious. I want to eat that, right? You don't think that if I present you with a flower, that's not food to you. It might be aesthetically pleasing, but it's not food. And that's why. So people really stop listening to themselves. And this is why you have mock meats to begin with. If meat wouldn't be biologically attractive to you, why create a soy schnitzel? There's no point for that. You don't need a vegetable sausage at all. Why would you try to replicate that? I mean, think about it really.
Yeah, exactly.
Now that I started eating meat again, am I ever thinking, carrots, they look very, very delicious, but I don't really digest them well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a sausage and I'm going to form a carrot out of it, and pretend it's actually a carrot.
Yeah.
Would never do that, right? Because I don't care for the carrot in the first place. But even if I would just eat that carrot and that's it. And that's the whole missing link here. People salivate over animal foods, over meat, but they tell themselves that we don't have to eat that. But the reality is that plants are not attractive to you. They taste disgusting.
Yeah,
Most
exactly.
of them. Right?
Yeah, and it's another thing with like the, like hunter-gatherers and these secluded groups in jungles that still exist today. They're not connected to the outside world. They all eat meat. They're all hunters, gatherers. And it's interesting because, well, if you wanted to farm crops, that takes time. Yes. What are you going to do in the time that you're starting that out and you're secluded in the desert or in the jungle or something? You're going to just wait and then starve to death trying to cultivate and wait and, for these things to grow? Or you're going to go and hunt for an animal because that's readily available to you.
Exactly right. And moreover, even because vegans will always say, this is an appeal to nature fallacy, we're not living in nature anymore, etc., etc. Okay, great for people that live in a modern day city, fantastic. However, from the Balkans, where we are originally from, I know families that are self-sustaining. So now, having a huge piece of land where you can cultivate all kinds of vegetables, and on top of that, you need to buy supplements, at least vitamin B12, otherwise you're going to get nerve damage from the pharmacy in order to sustain your lifestyle, is absolutely ludicrous. You can produce much more food per acre when you have, for example, chickens. Chickens will produce eggs every single day. They don't need much feed. What you are feeding the chickens, you cannot eat, despite what vegans believe. They believe we can eat the plants. No, you can't. You can't eat chicken feed, or if you want to, good luck with that. I'd rather take the chicken feed, give it to the chickens, and they will produce eggs every single day. It's much more sustainable. If a family on the Balkan, for example, they kill one cow, that thing can throw off 500 kilograms of meat. With that, you can freeze that liver whole year. One kill, whole year, no worries. Yeah, of course. Or you go to the land and farm every day, and then you will get maybe some corn, maybe some wheat, and you will still be nutritionally deficient. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. My grandfather survived off drinking milk every day, slaughtering animals, and then a little bit of farmland for a bit of grains. That's it, a bit of grains. The rest was all milk, eggs, chicken meat, beef. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, subhanAllah. So just a few super chats we'll go through quickly.
Sure.
We just have 4 here.
Right on.
Okay, Jazakallahu khair to Ghost Gamer, who's a loyal subscriber I've seen before, Alhamdulillah, for your Jazakallahu khair for your generous donation. He says, I am Arab. When I was studying abroad in USA, I used to go to an Islamic center there. I was surprised that the khutbah for the Jummah is in 3 languages. Do you guys have it the same? So Brother Bobby, the Jummah khutbah you attend, is that just in Thai or
just
English
in Thai.
as well? Just in Thai, you can't even understand
Unfortunately, I can't understand it, no.
Yeah.
So the khutbah is only in Thai here, of course, with some Arabic here and there, but yeah, predominantly Thai.
Yeah. So obviously, for us that are living in the Western countries where English is the native language, basically, so normally we'll have Arabic and English, basically. Some imam scholars will do it differently because they differ on opinions on whether or not the khutbah should only be in Arabic, quite similar to how we perform the salah, the prayer, only in Arabic. So some scholars say that, well, it should only be in Arabic, so it's not allowed to do it in any other language. And other scholars say, well, you can do it in another language because you're getting the message across to the people in the language that they can speak, so which is more practical. And some will do both as well. So some we'll do just the Arabic, and then we'll do the Sunnah khutbah, how it was done by the Prophet ﷺ, and then afterwards do it more like a lecture in English. that's pretty much, yeah, that's how it's done here.
Interesting.
But 3 languages. Not sure how they got 3 languages. Okay, we have Brother Mikhail. Brother Mikhail has a channel. He's a new Muslim revert to Islam. I think he did his Shahada just before you. It was in January this year. So I had him on for a live stream just the other day. Very amazing and inspiring story, and he's been wanting to reach out to you as well. He's an Italian American, lived kind of the very similar lifestyle that we did. And so he says, Assalamu alaikum, jazakallahu khair for your generous donation, by the way, Brother Mikhail. He says, Assalamu alaikum, brothers, great seeing you too live. Look forward to working with you both. Love you, my brothers, for the sake of Allah. And then he just sent another one saying, salute my Mediterranean bros from an Italian revert. Barakallahu
I have
feek.
20% South Italian DNA in me, something like that. There you go.
Did you find that out? Yeah, you would have found that out when you did your test for to see that you had Bulgarian. Is that the same thing?
Yeah. But if you go into detail, you see that we all have some admixture on the Balkans. So I had Greek as well and Southern Italian, but the predominant DNA is Bulgarian.
Yeah. I've thought about doing
it. Which it always shows when Macedonians do DNA tests. A little hobby of mine is watching Macedonian DNA tests on YouTube, and they always show them they're Bulgarians, and then they get shocked.
Yeah. Jazakallahu khair for your donation. No, doesn't have a message. Not sure what currency that is.
Schweizer Franken. Switzerland. Francs.
Switzerland. Oh, subhanAllah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always amazing to see the audience. It's just they're from all over the world, subhanAllah. Okay, so all right, let's go into the carnivore. So okay, so I looked up side effects for veganism, and I wanted to search potential side effects for carnivore diet. I wanted to be a bit equal planed and with both. So potential risks, and of course you're going to talk about these things and touch up on them. There is heart disease, which be the most prominent one, I guess, which is from consuming a higher amount of fats, right? Saturated fats, which they believe.
There's absolutely no proof for that whatsoever. They have never done any study on isolated carnivore or ketogenic diets and heart health. There was never that instance. They only did studies on meat eaters. But meat eaters are people that are eating a normal diet, quote unquote normal, or a standard American diet. If you look into that type of diet, it is already heavily plant-based, and people do not understand that whatsoever. So if you look at a hamburger menu, let's say, okay, let's start with a soda, sugarcane, plant-based. It's just a plant, right? The soda is just a plant. Then you have the fries. Those are just plants. Back in the day, at least they fried them in tallow or in some sort of animal fat. Nowadays, they're frying them in vegetable oils, hydrogenated vegetable oils. Back in the day, those oils were used for motor oils, for engines, right? Now they're refined, they're removing the taste, and now you're eating engine oils, essentially, and you're replacing animal fats with them. So those are plants again. Fries and oils, super unhealthy. And now you come to the burger and they display it as this meat fest. Now we're eating meat. It's ridiculous. If you look at a Big Mac, for example, just take out the burger patty. It is so thin, it is almost not detectable, man. Such a thin little mini patty. And in between, you have this big chunk of bread, then another patty, and then, of course, those 2 buns, right? Then you have sauces, which are plants as well. Then you have onions, which are plants as well. You have lettuce, which is a plant as well. So the only meat in the whole menu, the only animal food on the menu are those 2 little slices of meat. So essentially, this meal is at least 90% plant-based. That's what it is. And this is
even
why
the meat itself.
Yeah, even the meat itself,
patty,
of course,
has added additives to it as well.
Yeah, of course. So nowadays, when they sell you the vegan Whopper or the vegan Big Mac or whatever, they have those new menu items. Okay, now you're just replacing 10 or 20% of that already plant-based meal, and that's why the idiots are eating this, right? They don't even see the difference anymore, honestly. I have to be harsh, but it's the case. So the point of the story is they're making those hard studies. They're doing those hard studies on people that are consuming such diets. And now if you look at heart disease, it raised since the industrialization, right? We have such a 1,000-fold increase in heart attacks since the start of the industrialization. And since the start of the industrialization, we do have much more refined carbohydrates and we have vegetable oils wherever you go. And that hasn't been the case previously. And if you look back, you didn't have so many heart attacks. And then you look back into human history and what we've been eating predominantly and what was available, and it's predominantly meat. And back then, heart attacks were not rampant. So how can you then say that it is due to eating meat that you will get a heart attack? Let alone that they did not had any studies on ketogenic and carnivore diets in exclusion of carbohydrates. So it's an absolute false equivalent. And therefore, when you read potential side effect could be a heart attack because of the fat, how? What are we even talking about? It's absolutely ridiculous. But thank God, science is catching up as well. And now they start to realize that it is the polyunsaturated fatty acids that we find in vegetable oils and not the saturated fats. Because the cholesterol molecule itself is a healing molecule too. You have to understand it like an analogy almost, an analogy of, let's say, fireworkers. If you have a fire, let's say 9 out of 10 times you will have firefighters as well. But does that mean now that the firefighters set up the fire? Because correlation is not causation, right? You can say, hey, do you see the firefighters? They set the fire. That's it. Every time I see a fire, I see a firefighter. So probably they set the fire. Of course not. They're there to fight the fire. And cholesterol is actually a molecule that fights the inflammation. So when you have a ruptured artery, yes, you will have cholesterol there because cholesterol is trying to repair that artery. But the inflammation itself comes through, for example, vegetable oils or sugary carbohydrates, etc., etc. This is how you generate inflammation in your body. And then the cholesterol is found at the crime scene, if you will. And that's why they say, oh, it's cholesterol. No, it's not. It's definitely not cholesterol.
Yeah. And the whole, especially us for as Muslims, we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's allowed for us to eat meat. And of course, He's our creator, He's our sustainer, He's our provider. Why would He want something bad for us? So even for us as Muslims, it's like, well, it doesn't really matter what the science says anyway. Alhamdulillah.
Exactly. Yeah, Alhamdulillah. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Now it's just you have to have those talking points nowadays because the majority worldview in our global society, if you will, is the scientific worldview, the liberal, atheistic, scientific worldview. And this is what you're battling against. So therefore, if you say, God said so, then they always get triggered. Right? How can you say
of course,
I don't care what your book says. But you can provide evidence as well, and they're going to lose either way because there is no proper scientific research on plant-based diets anyways.
Okay. So now these other potential side effects, and what's interesting when I read this is after it says these side effects, it says, well, it can happen within the first few days or couple of weeks. So it could just be a temporary thing. So it says here, diarrhea, nausea, vomiting, constipation, headache, hydration, dehydration, or from fluid loss, dizziness, fatigue, insomnia.
Yeah. So after veganism, I didn't have any of those side effects. Quite the opposite. I had all of those side effects on a vegan diet. So when I switched to carnivore, my digestion stabilized and everything became normal. However, last time when I tried it, not diarrhea, but a bit softer stool, because I was used again to a carbohydrate metabolism. And so then when I switched to fat and increased the fat content, especially through butter, yes, then the stool becomes a bit more softened. But that normalized after, 2 days or so, it was back to normal again. So yes, people that are eating a predominantly carb-heavy diet, when they make the switch, it can happen, of course, that your body has, for a while, a bit digestive upset, especially because you're not introducing the same bacteria anymore. So every food comes with a certain set of bacteria. And if you're eliminating all of those foods that you've been eating previously to that, then you're eliminating a lot of bacteria, and bacteria in your gut is dying off, and then you will shed it. Then you will essentially leave it in the toilet, and it will get replaced with new bacteria from those animal foods, and then everything is back to normal. So that is very, very temporary. Yeah. It's like an oil change,
Yeah, it's like with keto, they call it the keto flu.
Yeah, exactly.
transition.
Yeah, can happen. But it's nothing dangerous or nothing to be worried about. Because yet again, I mean, this is not a side effect for me. If you do something different, yes, you will have a side effect. So for example, I never worked out in my life, and now I go to the gym. Potential side effects could be that you have sore muscles. Yeah, duh, of course, I will. And then it will turn to normal, right? I won't be ever as sore as I was after my first time in the gym. And it's the same with a diet change. Yes, of course, you will feel a bit different. If you've been eating cheesecakes every day, you will feel very hungry for a week if you don't. So, yeah, there's certain side effects, but that's not a proper side effect. A side effect is something that you suffer from long term and needs fixing. But this doesn't need any fixing because it turns back to normal by itself.
Yeah. Now, okay, a couple of other things. So when I looked up what are the nutrients you could be deficient in, okay, firstly it said fiber, but I mean, fiber isn't something your body absorbs anyway, right? It's just something that
First and foremost, fiber is not a nutrient. I mean, we can go to ChatGPT if you want to, and then you can look it up yourself. Is fiber a nutrient? No, it's not. So it is not an essential nutrient, nor is it a micronutrient. It is not a nutrient whatsoever. That's a fact. All right, that's the scientific explanation of fiber. Fiber is something that allegedly makes your bowel move. Allegedly. But if that is the case, then if you would exclude all the fiber, you would never go to the toilet, which is not the case either, because if you're on a carnivore diet, you go to the toilet, right? So that cannot be it. So the point is that it is called, by definition, insoluble fiber, which makes it insoluble for you and therefore indigestible. So it's not a nutrient whatsoever. Moreover, it has to be realized too that carbohydrates are not even essential. Only fats and proteins are essential nutrients. Carbohydrates are nutrients. Yes, they're sugars, they're glucose, but the glucose itself is not essential. Essential means that you die without it. So oxygen is essential, but carbohydrates are not. And therefore, if carbohydrates are not essential, fiber most definitely is not essential either. The only two macronutrients that are essential are fats and protein. That's it. So yeah, there's absolutely nothing that you can be deficient in. It's so ridiculous. They're always advertising for it. You need fiber in your diet, otherwise you're going to get deficient. What will happen when you remove it? You're dying? Something happens, some health complications. Most people that remove fiber, they feel much better after removing it. So yeah, doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Touching up on the carbs too. So that's something I remember learning a while back when I was heavily into bodybuilding and fitness as well. And I was kind of shocked, like saying, oh, you know, especially for like, obviously carbs are a good source to restore glycogen in the muscles when we're training, building muscle, and to have strength. But touching up on, so having it as an external source is not something that's essential for survival, right? But our brains need glucose, right? But our bodies will produce it itself through gluconeogenesis, right?
So the body is capable of producing glucose through gluconeogenesis, as you said. However, the brain is as well capable of going to the backup system and run on ketones. So it doesn't need to run on glucose. It can run on ketones. And this is something that people in the biohacking community have been experimenting with as well. And they find ketones to be the superior fuel. So when I'm in a ketogenic diet, it really depends. Sometimes I get that effect, sometimes I do not. But oftentimes when I'm in a ketogenic diet, I feel very, very clear of mind and I can perform better mentally. Right. Yeah. So it is not even essential for your brain per se. Your brain can run on ketones. All of that being said, I'm not against carbohydrates, as you said, for exercise, etc. There can be a benefit to it for sure, but there are benefits in supplements, there are benefits in steroids for performance, but that does not make them essential or healthier, right? And I'm not even claiming that lifting super heavy weights is something that you should consider doing if you want to be perfectly healthy. Right? I wouldn't say that is very healthy to lift extreme heavy weights either. So therefore, again, carbohydrates themselves are not essential and your body can perform without them and can be healthy without them. That's the whole point.
Yeah. I just want to bring up one comment from Brother Rami from the One Muslim. This is interesting because you talked about this with Sheikh Uthman. You mentioned about cornflakes. So he said we have been sold fire being part of a diet because of the creation of cornflakes with the church. So you spoke about was it Christians, a Christian group? Was it 7-day Adventist?
Seventh-day Adventist, exactly.
Yeah. So they created cornflakes to try and stop children from masturbation.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, it's a fact.
And I
You can look
Googled it.
Yeah.
I Googled it after I saw your Sheikh Uthman. We were talking about it. And I was like, whoa, subhanAllah.
Yeah.
But you
That's
know what I
absolutely
was thinking?
factual.
But you know what I
Yeah,
was thinking? Like, okay, like they want to try this weird experiment out, but I mean, they're still using milk. They're still using full cream dairy milk,
Sure.
which has saturated fats anyway, which is important for
Sure.
testosterone production
sure, for
anyway.
sure.
So
Yeah, but now they finally found the missing link, right? Soy milk, almond milk.
yes,
Now you can reduce your testosterone to 0 finally and abstain from that
become
dirty
a soy
habit.
boy.
Become a soy boy. No, but it's correct. As I said in that previous interview with Sheikh Uthman, the ideology behind removing saturated animal fats or animal foods in general was to curb libido and ultimately bring you away from high testosterone levels. I mean, that's what it was really used for, in order for a certain church sect, if you will, for their community to abstain from sex, out of marital sex, fornication, and of course masturbation, right? But yet again, like that means you're castrating yourself through nutrition or the lack thereof. And there you see how effective that actually is. You're right with the milk, of course. However, that is still vegetarian then. So you're lacking a Christian breakfast. I don't know how it would look like, but I would assume they would have some sort of meat or sausage or maybe bacon or whatever they're
Yeah,
eating.
because
Some sort of meat with it, right?
yeah, I forgot that the 7-day Adventists, they're vegetarians.
The vegetarians, exactly.
Right? Yeah. Because I knew interesting, because I knew a girl once from a long time ago. She was interested in Islam. She was a 7-day Adventist. Yeah, she was a bit funny though.
I hope she found us.
Yeah, inshallah.
Yeah.
So how long? Oh, sorry. I just want to now another popular quote unquote risk with carnivore, if you Google side effects, colon cancer. Now, firstly, I will say it's interesting because there's a guy at my work, and he's German, and he's been a vegan for 2 years, and I actually didn't know. Like, I had no idea, but he is very slim. He has some muscle because he does do some training, and the other workers say he's very fanatical about his training, and he's very lean and whatever. And yeah, he saw me one time heating up food, and it was like leftover takeaway. It was like grilled meats and whatever. And so he was asking me about it, and I was like, "Oh, have you tried it?" And he was like, "Oh," it's like, "No, I'm a vegan." He was a bit hesitant in saying it. And he started talking, and he mentioned the colon cancer. I didn't want to go much into it because we're at work, and I don't want to like get into the discussion and then end up losing my job or something like that. Might offend him or something. So the colon cancer, and I'll say right off the bat, when I Googled it, I came across that apparently there's been 800 studies, but it says that the studies were made on participants that consumed red processed meats. So going back to what you were saying before about the burger, right? Eating the patties processed and other junk foods, and of course these studies aren't done on people that are just eating meat.
Exactly right. Yeah, that's my whole point, because I, for example, even if I'm eating a mixed diet, I never eat processed meats. I never eat vegetable oils. So I always eat clean, right? Either I'm on a carnivore diet, and when I'm not, then I'm eating rice and meat and some fruits. That's basically it. That's how I eat. I don't eat anything added to it. And they do those studies on people that are eating processed meat, and then they're going to blame the meat for it. The processed meat is one issue, but then again, the 10,000 other ingredients that come with processed foods are yet again another, right? Processed carbohydrates, processed oils, processed meats. The whole diet is processed, and then they're going to blame it on the processed meat. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. The only fair equivalent, the only fair study would be, of course, if they would take people that are truly on a carnivore diet, truly on a ketogenic diet, and then compare that to the rest, right? To the vegans, to the vegetarians, if you will. And they cannot find it. It's absolutely impossible. Just as the other studies, for example, I don't know if you ever heard about it, vitamin A toxicity. So vitamin A toxicity was a topic of debate amongst the vegans, and they say that vitamin A in its pure form, they admitted it, is found only in animal foods. And liver has a very high concentration of vitamin A. So they found studies to show that you can die of vitamin A toxicity. However, all of those studies have been conducted with supplements, because for a study to be conducted precisely, they need to know exactly how many micrograms, how many milligrams are used. So therefore, they gave people vitamin A pills, right, additional to their otherwise omnivorous diet, and that's how they overdosed on vitamin A. But it never happened ever that a person overdosed on eating liver. It just never happened. And therefore, even this, to say, hey, vitamin A is toxic and liver has vitamin A, and therefore you're going to get vitamin A toxicity if you're eating liver, is a false equivalent. It doesn't work that way. And that's why studies are very, very problematic. You have the headline, meat eater got colon cancer. Okay, what else did he eat? Was he eating just meat every day? He was waking up in the morning, had a steak. Right? That's how he started his day. No, he might have smoked a cigarette. He might have a coffee with that, right? With creamer, with sugar, with all kinds of things, and a croissant, and bacon, and God knows what else.
Yeah,
right?
It can be very deceiving.
Yeah.
Now going back to, okay, we said fiber isn't actually classed as a nutrient. It's not something that we need. Okay, Now there's 3 others here that, whatever website it was that mentioned this, they said vitamin C, vitamin D, calcium. Now, after seeing this, I thought I'd do a quick search into animal products and whether or not they have these nutrients. Now, so we have vitamin D in fish. Fish liver oil specifically as well, so not just fish meat, but also even more prevalent in the oils as well. Egg yolks, cheese, beef liver, which is a big one as well, and you also promote the livers and the organs, the animal organs.
Yes.
Yeah, so that was a quick search to show that I mean, this is, I just Googled this, so if anyone else Googles it, they're going to see the same thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but that just shows you how ridiculous that is, because they listed the same nutrients of concern in a vegan diet, right? They said vitamin D and calcium. So where is it now? Is it lacking in the vegan diet? Is it lacking in animal foods? Fact of the matter is, as I said already here, vitamin D3 is not being found in plant foods at all, 0. In animal foods, on the other hand, you have them. That's it. You don't have vitamin D3 in plants, period. So how can you get deficient on a carnivore diet? That is absolutely backwards, right? And calcium, of course, the best part about dairy, for example, is that it actually comes in a combination of vitamin D3, calcium, and it has vitamin K2 as well, which in symbiosis, in a matrix, is perfectly transported into your bones, into your teeth, right? So you will never find those nutrients in plants to begin with, and then you would have to combine them as well. So yeah, what was the other one? Vitamin C, right? Yeah, you can find vitamin C in raw organ meats. If you eat raw liver, for example, you can find vitamin C.
Yes, okay, so how long were you on carnivore when you were strict carnivore after the vegan diet?
I have to lie to you now. I think it was like a year or so. Something like that. Yeah, roughly a year.
So, and now you see it as something more good for a cleanse, but maybe not long term, so to speak, or?
I've seen it for myself working periodically, but long-term not so much. I just find that after a while, I cannot maintain it. It's not sustainable for me personally to eat as much as I need to in order to keep my calories up. The amounts of meat that I need to eat are just absolutely outrageous. And I can fix that quite quickly when I'm introducing small portions of rice. Why that is so? Because I need to go through gluconeogenesis after a while. I'm not going to stay in ketosis. The reason for that is as well because I work out. So if you want to stay in ketosis, you should eat 70% of fat, roughly, maybe even 80% of fat, and only 20 to 30% of protein. And that is not sustainable for me because I'm working out. So I'm eating basically 50-50 or so. But if you're eating so much protein, then you will enter gluconeogenesis, and then your body will produce carbohydrates again. But now what you're doing is you're having very expensive carbohydrates, because now instead of eating a banana that is super cheap, you're eating a T-bone steak and you're expecting your body to convert that into carbohydrates, into sugars. So for me, that is a waste of meat. That's a waste of meat. I don't have to do that. So what I do is I eat less meat, still sufficient, but less meat, and I replace it with one bowl of rice, for example. And like that, it's much more sustainable for me personally.
Yeah.
Right?
Are you training right now?
Right now, Alhamdulillah, I'm back to training. Yes, I train predominantly jiu-jitsu, and I go to the gym just twice per week. Yeah, just for maintenance. Yeah.
So you were training when you were strict carnivore, were you? Were you lifting weights?
Yes.
And what was that like? Because I've tried keto. This is the only time where I've completely cut out carbs, and that was just for 3 months. So I can't say I did it full-heartedly, but I did definitely see some benefits. But I found that the training was lacking a bit of oomph that I normally get.
I know what you mean.
With the carbs. So how was that for you?
Yeah. There are two periods. Again, right now, I see that. Right now, I have much more of a pump and much more of strength when I'm using carbohydrates. However, after being vegan and then switching to carnivore was phenomenal. It was so much better, man, because I was on so many carbohydrates and I was insulin sensitive. I was eating up to 800 grams of carbohydrates per day as a vegan sometimes. I was eating so many carbs that my body wasn't sensitive to those carbohydrates at all anymore, and it just wasn't utilizing it. So therefore, when I went then ketogenic, carnivore, my training was better, my strength increased, my weight increased, everything. So making the switch to carnivore after veganism was phenomenal. It saved my life. But nowadays, I just do it as a reset, as I said. I do it when I feel, okay, I need to cut certain things out, recenter again, potentially fight inflammation, etc., etc. It can help with that as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, in the long run, I always circle back to carbohydrates nowadays, for sure. Aside from that, I want to have a little bit of enjoyment in my life too. I like to eat some sushi outside. Yeah, with my family, go grab something to eat, certain things like that. It gets boring, you know?
Yeah. So how's your autoimmune issue that you had before? Because you were getting sick quite a bit.
The carnivore diet definitely helped with that as well. And at the same time, unfortunately, fortunately, call it what you will, I got prescribed a certain medication and I had to stay on that for quite some time. And now I'm tapering it out. But just for right now, I'm doing, inshallah, doing quite well. Thank God.
Yeah, Alhamdulillah. May Allah make it easy for you. Okay, so yeah, I think we've covered the carnivore side. What time is it for you now, bro?
Now it's 6:24.
Okay, so I think 6:50 is Maghrib time, yeah?
Yeah, 6:50.
So we'll quickly go through the bodybuilding, your experience with training, insha'Allah, and we can wrap it up. So you showed an old photo of yourself. How old were you in that photo again? When you?
I believe 22. I believe 22.
Okay.
21 or 22, something like that.
Yeah.
Very young.
How old were you when you first started lifting weights, and what was your motivation?
I was 16 years old. My motivation then was that I was a skinny teenager. However, that you can trace back even further, because when I was 9 years old, I became very, very chubby. The reason being is in Germany, we have this thing called Carnival. It's when hordes of people in costumes, similar to Halloween, they come to the city and they create this parade, and then they're throwing candies. And all the children run there, of course, because they all want to collect candies. However, I was very, very smart at that time, and I got the conclusion that my parents, they have those big bags that you get when you buy a jacket. So back in the day, when you would buy a jacket in Germany, they will give you this humongous bag, super big, bigger than myself. So I told my sister, you know what? We're going to get this bag here and fill it up with candy. So we're going to have candy for the rest of the year until next carnival. You know? And my sister was never a good eater, never was, never will be. But she assisted me, of course, as her bigger brother. And so we went to this parade. So we filled up that bag, brought it back home, kilos of candies, and just spilled it all in our room. We were sharing a room at the time, right? And then went to the next parade. There were like 5 parades and just filled up every single time. And so we really accomplished our goal. The whole room was filled with candies. And every day now I could just eat candy, right? I didn't have to ask my parents. I didn't have to beg for money or whatever. I just had candies forever, right? It was paradise for me. And my parents coming from Yugoslavia at the time and having seen communism, they were very, very happy for us having food. They didn't know what is good food, what is bad food. They didn't care about candies. So point of the story is I started eating candies every single day, and needless to say, I got very, very fat. but I couldn't connect the dots. I didn't understand why I got fat. I didn't get it. And I was getting fatter and fatter and fatter and fatter. And I was wondering, because all my friends were eating candies as well, but nobody was so fat like me. Because I was sitting in front of my TV at night and eating more candies than anybody else could ever imagine to have, right? So that was the time when I got so frustrated with it. And this was the time before the internet. So I had no information whatsoever. Nobody could tell me how to lose weight. But I had this remembrance that I used to be a skinny kid. So I knew that somehow I must be able to return to that state, but I need the secret. And that's when I started praying. You asked if we were very practicing. I had no particular religious prayer. I would just lay in bed and pray, right? As a kid, like this. And so I was praying to God, and I was asking God every single night, God, show me how to lose weight. God, show me how to lose weight. Every single night. Every single night. And one day, and I will never forget that, my mom took me to a friend of hers, just two ladies sitting, drinking coffee and talking about whatever, right? No children were there, no toys were there in that flat, just those two ladies talking, and I got bored out of my mind, so I didn't know what to do. So I was running around in circles in that flat, just looking for some sort of entertainment, and the only thing I could find was a ladies' magazine. And so when I opened up the ladies' magazine, actually on the cover it already said, "The Secret to Weight Loss." And I said to myself, man, that's amazing, right? So my prayers have been heard. The Secret of Weight Loss, where is it? It's on page 6. So I opened up the magazine and went straight to page 6. And the secret to weight loss was, do not eat after 8 p.m. That's it. So it was essentially intermittent fasting, right?
Yeah.
The thing is, I'm a very firm believer that too much information is the biggest problem that we have nowadays. It doesn't help anybody. You have a billion workout plans, a billion type of diets, and everybody's confused. They don't know what to do. So I got only this one piece of information, which was do not eat after 8 p.m. I really believe that God sent me that secret. And I was convinced that this was essentially revelation to me. Right now, you need this. Stop eating after 8 p.m. And this is why I applied it. So when I was 9 years old, then I applied that secret. And no matter where we would go, man, for example, we would go to family get-togethers, holidays, I wouldn't eat. We'd have barbecues, birthdays. I, as a 9-year-old and 10-year-old, 11-year-old, I wouldn't eat at all. 8 p.m., I'm not eating. That's it. Ever, And that's how I lost my weight then. However, when I was 16 years old, I was very, very skinny. Just 60 kilos, super skinny teenager, tall, but not much meat on my frame anymore. And this is when I decided, okay, I have to do something about this. I have to start with bodybuilding, with fitness,
Yeah.
And of course, it didn't help either that I was growing up with Arnold Schwarzenegger movies, Sylvester Stallone movies.
Yeah.
They did their part.
I want to talk about that. Yeah,
of course.
Yeah,
Get
those movies, man.
Yeah, those movies. Yeah, they definitely did their part, and
especially
I always found it amazing that you actually can transmute your body, that you can change your body. For me, this was very empowering. Even though this term is nowadays used and misused, it's very empowering. But for me, it was because I was this fat kid, and with this little tweak in my diet, I could lose the weight. And now with another tweak, eating more protein, lifting weights, I could change everything about me. Because as a teenager, you identified with your body. That's all you know. You're not thinking about the soul. You're not thinking about an afterlife. You're just thinking, this is me now. And you try to work with what you got. So for me to be able to take, so to speak, control over my destiny, where I'm going, what kind of person I can be a bodybuilder. That was so amazing. It was groundbreaking to me. And that's how I fell in love with bodybuilding back then. To have that power, Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, man, those movies were very inspirational. I can say that for sure. Even Van Damme as well, even though he was a martial artist, but he had a bodybuilder physique as well, you know what I mean? Yeah. Okay, so you started at 16. Same age I started, actually. I just started with I had some dumbbells at home that my parents bought me. It was the twist them on.
Yeah.
I just started lying on the floor and just, they weren't that heavy, but it was something. Did a bit of weights in school as well, not a lot. So you continued your training up until that age of 22?
Till 23, 24, roughly, because that's when I got very, very sick. Then I had to stop for a whole year. After that, I got back to it again, but not as hardcore bodybuilding. The hardcore bodybuilding phase was from 19 to 22. roughly, like 3 years of hardcore bodybuilding. From 16 to 19, I was bodybuilding as well. Like after a few months, I already got the hang of it. I started watching Ronnie Coleman DVDs that I got from the internet. And just replicate exactly what he did. Yet again, I had no other information. And that's why, nowadays when people ask, can you make a meal plan for me? I'm really wondering why anybody would ask that, because you can find it online. It's really not that hard. Like, you can click on a what I eat in a day video nowadays. We didn't have that back in the day. So you just see what he eats, just eat the same, maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more, whatever, and you're going to be fine. So all I saw is how Ronnie Coleman ate, how Jay Cutler ate. I just replicated that. Then I saw how Dorian Yates trains, and I just did that. I trained like him, basically. And so I did that from 16 to 19 was the first phase where I really ballooned up. I looked like a powerlifter, basically. Not very defined, but very big. And then I really got after the bodybuilding, with all the supplements and all of that. That was like the hardcore phase.
Yeah, I got into the supplements as well a fair few times. So I don't know how to word this exactly. PEDs, we'll say performance enhancing supplements that are not exactly legal. I don't know if we can use the words or what, or I know your channel can get affected by it, but just in case. But so can you tell us any negative side effects you had from those supplements?
I have to really think about how to word this, not necessarily because of the censorship, but because of the people watching as well, because I do not want to promote them whatsoever. And I've never really talked about it on my channel in detail, especially not during the time when I was still promoting veganism and working out. Right now, I'm not promoting working out at all. So hopefully the people watching this can resonate with this a bit more objectively, and they're not looking up to me anymore because of my body, because right now I'm not posting my body anymore. And back then, that's why I really didn't want to talk about it, because you're always guiding people into certain things, and then they have to deal with those consequences themselves. They see somebody on YouTube and think, okay, that's a body that I want to have, so maybe I should emulate this. So first and foremost, I would say definitely stay away from it. And people will still think to themselves, well, but he didn't stay away from it, so therefore, why should I? The side effects, I was lucky, I have to say. During the time taking those things, I had no real side effects at all. That could be maybe because I was very young during the time or whatever, but I had no side effects at all. My skin was perfect. My friends, as I said, they had acne everywhere. I remember my friend, whilst bench pressing, he had a white t-shirt on, and pus would come through the t-shirt whilst pressing. That's how much acne he had everywhere. I had no acne. I had no gynecomastia. And believe it or not, I had no hair loss either. During the time of taking, I had no hair loss whatsoever. Zero. My hair was still thick, as you saw in the pictures. I got hair loss way, way later, after stopping those things, I think 3 or 4 years later. Right? I never had any issues with that. So during the time, Alhamdulillah, I had no issues at all. However, when I came off it, I had big issues for a year or so. My libido was tanked, crashed. My testosterone levels were almost zero. And I believe that most people that I've seen online, when they talk about their recovery afterwards, they say they couldn't recover, and that's why they jumped back on. I think that everybody can recover, but it takes a long time. So, for example, Joe Lindler, may he rest in peace now, he just passed away. He lived here in Thailand as well, Joey Aesthetics. I don't know if you know the guy. Was very famous influencer, 8 million followers on Instagram, or even 9 million.
When did he pass away?
Just last week.
Okay.
At the age of 30. Super shredded guy. Amazing physique. But he said as well that he went off the steroids, and then after that he wanted to stay natural, but after a few months or whatever, he couldn't recover, and that's why he went back on. My point is, I believe that everybody can recover, or at least 99% can recover, but you have to stay off. You just have to stay off and wait it out. And for me, it took over a year until I got back to somewhat normal testosterone levels. And that's something that you really have to think about, because do you want to stay on something forever? If not, then why go on it on the first place? Because after going off, you will lose a substantial amount of the gains, and then you will have to work with your own testosterone levels to bring them back up. And that is not only about the gains. You have to understand that as well. When your testosterone levels are low, you are very prone to depression. You're very prone to lethargy, fatigue. You don't want to do anything. So you can waste a whole year of your life, or even more so, if you do that. Right? And that's why it's a very, very important subject for people to understand and realize that you're messing with your hormones, essentially. And the side effects can be severe.
Yeah, of course. So, of course, you're shutting off your natural production of testosterone using this synthetic form, and that the natural production could, what's the word? You could potentially lose your natural production in the long run, even just from one usage, from one cycle. And there's a whole other, side effects that can occur, long-term damage, things like that. And I wasn't going to promote it at all. I've experienced with it myself. I think I was just like you, didn't really have any side effects at all. Some people definitely do get side effects. And it's something that, is a bit worrying for the youth, especially with social media now. It's all out there. It used to be something that was really taboo. Like, people didn't want to talk about it. People that were using it, the professional bodybuilders back in the days, they weren't talking about it. It was kept like hush, hush. Now everyone's talking about it. The bodybuilders are talking about it. And you have these young guys, like as young as 13 and 14, starting to use these substances. And it's just crazy. It's just crazy that for kids to be thinking about using it before they've even gone through puberty and have, matured with their bodies. They're thinking about using these things. It's crazy. So I would only advise for people that have medical conditions. If for people that suffer from low testosterone to seek medical advice through a doctor, and that's it.
The thing with social media is that, first and foremost, you have to understand that in every performance sport, you have performance-enhancing drugs. That's just what it is. You have that in cycling. You have that even in soccer. People don't want to believe it, but it's true. You have that in soccer. You have that in basketball. In every sport, there are performance-enhancing drugs. However, those other sports, they are not really present on social media the way that fitness is. So the fitness vloggers and however you want to call them, Gymshark teams, etc., they made it to a lifestyle, something that the normal person can do as well, which is fine. The normal person can go to the gym. However, the normal person then doesn't require the same enhancement like a professional. And that's the whole point. You don't see cyclists on YouTube talking about their usage. You just don't. But hobbyists nowadays, they don't go to stage, talk about it. But back in the day, you're absolutely correct. People like Ronnie Coleman or whatnot, they wouldn't talk about it. There was no need for it. There was no social media. You would just see their training tape and that's it. And if you would have liked to hear what they take, you would have to be in their circles. And then maybe you would know. Right? So therefore, this is something that is being used in elite levels of sport. And there's simply no need for it at all for a hobbyist. At all, zero. And the most important lesson for me personally, getting into my 30s, is that it's all going to pass. I don't want to sound too doom and gloom here, but it's all going to pass. So what you're thinking is so amazing in your 20s will pass. So right now, for example, I see my son, and my son is obsessed with trucks, little cars. He loves them. He loves them so much. When we go to playgrounds here, they have those humongous, it's like a child paradise. I don't even know how to call those things. You have those jumping trampolines, all kinds of activities for children here. And then you have a little corner with little cars and trucks. And instead of going to the slides, instead of going to those trampolines, my son just goes to the cars and just plays with the cars all the time. He doesn't even see those trampolines. It's not interesting to him because he's 2 years old. That's it. Because he's 2 years old. But guess what? When he's 4, when he's 5, he's going to forget about those trucks, and then he's going to jump on the trampoline all the time. That's going to be entertaining to him. Right? And then when he's becoming, 12, 13, 14 years old, then all of a sudden the girls will become interesting to him. Of course, it's natural. Right? But the point of the story is that those things that are so interesting to you right now, like in your 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, they're not going to be so interesting afterwards. It's really the case. I have to say that. I don't want to sound like this old uncle here, but it's the case. Muscles, Arnold Schwarzenegger, all of that was very alluring when I was a child, when I was 16, 20. Wow, amazing. But nowadays, when I see Arnold Schwarzenegger with his muscles, I'm thinking, okay, there's Arnold. I don't care about his muscles. Now, other things are much more interesting to me and much more important, of course, right?
Yeah.
And that's why.
Like like the jiu-jitsu, keeping fit, doing that sort of stuff.
Exactly. And that's why I'm never going to talk bad about anything that I've done. Everything's part of my life. But yeah, I would highly recommend for people to not only do bodybuilding, because then it becomes an extreme as well. If you want to use strength and conditioning for another sport in symbiosis with another sport, I find that much more preferable and much healthier as well. Because bodybuilding should have been, in my opinion, complementary to other sports. If you're doing basketball, for example, you need to work on your jump. You need to increase the strength of your muscles, etc., etc. That makes sense. But if you just do bodybuilding, it can become an obsession, and then it can go to an extreme. And next thing you know is you're just lifting weights, injecting things, and looking at the mirror. So,
and bodybuilders, and bodybuilders aren't necessarily healthy, even if they have this extreme physique of, huge muscular development and aestheticism and, low body fat doesn't mean they're actually healthy. And we see people that are having, heart attacks and things like that. So what are your advice for, like, just talking about the bodybuilding, weightlifting for the younger ones, or whoever wants to get start, building a bit of muscle, getting fit, wanting to get into shape? What would you advise just for starting off?
Yeah, it's quite funny because I kind of have to laugh at myself, because this is not the advice that I would have given 10 years back. But nowadays I would say go to another sport first. I really mean this. Go to another sport first and see how you can actually move your body. I'm not into extreme calisthenics or supreme animalistic movements or what kinds of things they do. However, my lack of movement and understanding of my own body led to so many more injuries later on as well. I went to bodybuilding because, quite frankly, I sucked at team sports. I hated team sports. I hated team sports with a vengeance. To be dependent on the team, that annoyed me so much. Okay, now he's going to shoot the ball. Now I'm going to shoot the ball. It was annoying to me. I had to take so many factors into account. On top of that, what was annoying to me as well is there were fixed times. Practice is at 6 p.m. I don't want to care about those things. I just want to go to the gym whenever I want to. I had this 24-hour gym. I could go to the gym whenever I wanted to. Amazing. Right? That's what I loved. So I'm completely independent and I can do my own thing. I'm not relying on anybody. That's why I went into bodybuilding. However, because I went into bodybuilding and I sucked at all the other sports, I became very stiff. I was very good at moving an object from A to B. Fantastic. But that's what I was good at. Nothing else, right? I wasn't good at understanding my body. I wasn't good at stretching. I wasn't good at any of those things. And this is why I got injured quite a bit. So I would really recommend, before you get into bodybuilding, into strength and conditioning, you should get into another sport. And moreover, any other sport always has a coach. And bodybuilding never has a coach, man, in 99% of the times. You can just get a gym membership and you go in there and you do whatever you want. It's very dangerous. It really is very dangerous. I have so many injuries because of that, because I just lived like an insane idiot that watched Ronnie Coleman and thought he's Ronnie Coleman himself, That would be my advice. Do another sport first, become reasonably good at that sport, and then go to the gym and see how that gym session interacts with your sport as well. Because later, when I got into boxing, for example, I realized how stiff I am. And then I had to do reconditioning training. I had to take all kinds of, how do you call them, medicine ball workouts. That's how we call them. Those big balls, and just start throwing things in order to recondition my muscle. I had to do so much reconditioning because I realized how bodybuilding was actually impairing my movement. But if you do a sport that entails movement first, then you will understand how bodybuilding can be complementary rather than impairing your sport. That would be my honest advice, man. Do another sport first.
Yeah. No, it's a good point. And yeah, I used to, when I got into boxing, it was the same thing. I was very stiff. I was very stocky. I was muscular. But then when I got into the ring and started doing pads, I was just slow, and I got exhausted in the first round. It was just, and within 3 months, I cut back on the weight training. Every time I'd go to the gym, and I used to love lifting weights, I go to the boxing bags instead. I was like, I just wanted to hit the bag. I didn't even want to do the weights anymore. And in 3 months, I dropped like 8 kilos, and I was doing 10 2-minute rounds fairly comfortably. Big, huge difference. Yeah. And but even like doing bodybuilding and stuff, I always like to do some sort of cardio kind of circuit type thing as well, using like battle ropes, skipping, burpees. I like to mix it up too and help to reduce the body fat as well. But yeah, obviously if you're just doing, and when I was younger, I used to play a lot of soccer, a lot of tennis, and used to do a lot of stretching as well.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very good. Yeah, then you had a way better basis than I did because I had no base whatsoever. I just went
Mm.
in there, started building muscle,
Yeah.
and became super stiff.
Well, when I first started training, not when I first started, it was more so because I didn't get a lot into it when I was 16. I did when I was like 18, 19, and my best friend got me into it.
Mm.
And when we started training, I was doing a lot of stretching as well, like when I get home and stuff, because mainly it was from the tennis. I knew a lot of stretching from the tennis. And I'll tell my friend, like, yeah, it's good for recovery. Like, I'm doing this so I can get even quicker results, sort of thing. But
Nice,
yeah.
nice, nice.
Mm,
Oh, that's amazing. You already had an understanding of your body, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. If you build up an understanding over your body, you build up an understanding about stretching, etc., that it will benefit your bodybuilding as well. It will be just more sustainable and healthier for you,
mm, yeah,
for sure.
exactly right.
Yeah.
So, and
My
also
brother,
to mention about, yeah, you're out of time?
it's 47. Yeah, we'll have to run.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Alhamdulillah. All right. There's no more super chats, and yeah, there's a bit of convo that was going on. Not many questions really. Okay, bro. Yeah, we'll end it there then. Jazakallahu khair. Thank you so much for coming on, coming out of your busy schedule. We'll let you go pray your maghrib and have time with your family, inshallah.
Thank you so much for having me on, brother. It was a pleasure. And yeah, let's do it again. I'm sure we can talk about much, much more things in more detail.
Yeah, yeah, inshallah. Yeah, it was very interesting. Obviously, you have lot of knowledge on this stuff, the veganism, the carnivore. Like the back of your hand, mashallah. So yeah, it
For
was
better or
very.
worse.
I, I hope it was very beneficial for the audience as well. It was very beneficial
Hopefully.
for myself.
Inshallah.
Alhamdulillah. Okay, that's it. Yeah, all right, brother. Until next time, inshallah, we'll keep in contact.
Inshallah.
Yeah. Assalamu
All right.
alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Walaikum salam.
All right, alhamdulillah. I'll just stay on for a short while. If anyone has any questions, send them through. Alhamdulillah, that was great. It went really well. Very informative about nutrition from Bobby's perspective. Alhamdulillah. Um, okay, so let's just quickly go through the chat. Okay. The one Muslim brother Rami, he said, then they got us on Weet-Bix. It's about reducing our strength. Yes. So brother Bobby, when he was on with Sheikh Uthman, he mentioned Weet-Bix as well, being linked to like the 7-day Adventist Christians and wanting to reduce testosterone in children. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. If you just Google that, you'll find it. Let's see if there's anything else. Any other questions? Tamara Khair, she said the agenda to keep people sick, so big pharma benefits. Yeah, it's exactly right. Keeping people on medications. Of course, if everyone was eating healthy and living a healthy lifestyle, then why would people be buying medications? We'd be a lot more healthier. We wouldn't be getting sick, getting diseases, things like that. So, of course, the pharmaceutical companies would lose money. It's a very good point. Meat is a gift of God for us, delicious gift. Alhamdulillah from Adrian Muslim. AG Zek said carnivore diet, hunter-gatherer diet for O-type blood group, who are the majority of the world's population. SubhanAllah, it's very interesting. So what was Brother Bobby's bulking up diet after he left veganism? So from what he said, he seemed to go more into carnivore. He introduced some carbohydrates. But yeah, when he did train as a carnivore after the veganism, so he wasn't really doing a traditional bodybuilding diet at that time. All right, brothers and sisters, I'm going to wrap it up now. Alhamdulillah, it was great to have you on. It was a wonderful live stream. Welcome to the new subscribers from Bobby's channel. Alhamdulillah. Yeah, so inshallah, I'm going to be having more guests on. I should be hopping onto Brother Mikhail's channel soon. We were planning for this week, but I don't think it's going to happen. Maybe inshallah next week I'll go onto Brother Mikhail's channel and just give my story, how I reverted to Islam. Yeah, inshallah. But I plan to have many more guests to come on. If you haven't watched, I've done 2 other live streams with guests so far in the past week. So I had Brother Mikhail on. Make sure to check out his channel. So I mentioned his super chat earlier, but if you see here, Brother Mikhail, just type Brother Mikhail into YouTube and you can find his channel. He has an image of Qur'ans there. So he's actually sending off free Qur'ans as a dawah. SubhanAllah, mashallah, may Allah reward him. Yeah, so I had him on and I had Brother Daniel Wayne Jury. So a lot of you, or most of you, or some of you would know he was on Brother Bobby's channel. I don't know if I mentioned, but I was on Brother Bobby's channel earlier this year before he embraced Islam. So if you didn't know that, go to Brother Bobby's channel as well. Go to the live streams. My story is there. It was quite a long live stream. It was like over 3 hours, subhanAllah. So my story is there as well. And yeah, so I had Daniel Wayne Jury, who's an American revert. He came on a week ago and gave his story as well. He gave his story on Brother Bobby's channel as well. I think he was just after me on Brother Bobby's channel. Very interesting story because Brother Daniel got interested in Islam through Bobby's videos when he was reacting to Islamic content. And he also experienced veganism and spiritual journeys very similar to Brother Bobby. So yeah, go check out the live stream that I had with him as well, insha'Allah. Brother Mikhail put his link there, but I don't think it can be shown as a link. Can I copy that or? But yeah, if you type it in, you'll see it. Yeah, all right. Jazakallahu khair for attending. Alhamdulillah. And until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.